puts all the pieces together, blending a tradition rich in memories with innovation and the latest in television technology. Great moments come alive on NBC Sports. Baseball is in full swing as most of you will see Pedro Guerrero lead the Los Angeles Dodgers to Shea Stadium in New York to challenge Darryl Strawberry and the New York Mets. Or some of you will see the Atlanta Braves in the Windy City take on the Chicago Cubs from Wrigley Field. Then it's golf from beautiful Kings Island, Ohio. Third round coverage of the Mazda LPGA Championship. But first, NBC Sports presents Major League Baseball, an inside look. Brought to you by Delta Airlines. Delta gets you there with care. And by Rust-Oleum. If it's going to get wet, get Rust-Oleum in brush sizes and handy aerosol.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marv Albert in New York, and welcome to the start of our baseball day here on NBC. On this, the 8th Saturday of the season, all 4 divisional races are tight. Only the Kansas City Royals, who turned it from the slow start, lead by as many as 3.5 games. And last night in Texas, it was Danny Tarnaball connecting for 2 two-run home runs. Numbers 5 and 6 on the season, sparking the Royals over the Texas Rangers 8-1. Charlie Leibrandt winning his 6th of the year. In Anaheim last night, Don Mattingly with 3 hits, including this 2-run home run, as the Eastern leading Yanks knocked off the Angels 7-2. The Yanks now 2 in front. In the National, the Dodgers continue to struggle. They went 0 for the week. They lost their 7th straight. Pitcher Matt Young threw it high and far. That provided the Mets with the game-winning run, and the Mets have won 3 in a row, showing some signs. The Mets over the Dodgers 6-4. The Giants on top of the National League West, helped by this stumbling double play. Jose Uribe on a recovery pulled it off, and the Giants beat the Phillies as Atley Hammaker continued his comeback. Here's the catch of the night. Off this drive by Jim Morris, and Eric Davis of the Reds does it again in spectacular fashion, but the Reds lost to the Pirates 4-1. They are 2 behind the Giants, while in the East, the Cardinals are up by 1 off last night's 7-5 victory over the Astros. We'll be back with some hot baseball trade news in just a moment. Welcome back to our New York studios, where we are joined by the man we call the Super Scribe, Hal Bodley, the baseball editor at USA Today. Hal will be joining us from time to time on the pregame to kick things around with us. And Hal has some hot baseball trade news. First of all, I know you've been digging around a bit. What is this about a Gary Templeton deal with the Yankees? Well, earlier in the week, there were some really heated talks between the Padres and the Yankees involving Gary Templeton, but I don't think it's going to happen now, at least not in that form. Now, you were mentioning names such as Dan Pasqua and Mike Pagliarulo. Is that true? Well, that happened yesterday, those discussions with Mike Pagliarulo for Eric Shaw of the Padres, but the Padres turned that down. Earlier this week, we got a report that one-time Yankee Goose Gossage might be headed back to the Yankees. What do you hear about that? That's true. He was talked about by both teams during discussions, and I don't think that'll happen either. Not because the Yankees are leery of his $1.2 million contract, but because they're not really sure he can still pitch. All right, so Trader Jack McKeon has his hand on the trigger. In fact, there's been talk also between the Padres and the Reds, and Larry Bow and Pete Rose are old friends, so something could be brewing there. Old friends. I bet I'd not like to have their telephone bill this week. They've been burning up the telephone lines trying to work something out, and I think if the truth were known, Bow would like to help the Reds, providing he can get something back. But I'm not sure that'll work out because the Reds don't want to part with their really good players, and I'm not sure that the Padres will part with pitchers such as Lance McCullers, and that's the one Pete Rose would like to have. Are you tapping in on these phone lines? No, that's illegal. I'm sorry, I wouldn't bring that up. All right, to another subject. I understand many of the owners are upset with Milwaukee because they are about to sign a 16-year-old pitcher out of Puerto Rico by the name of Ramsey Correa. He's the brother of Ed Correa of Texas, 16 years old. That's unbelievable. That's going to happen tomorrow. They're going to announce this. Joe Nuxhall, who during the war years came up at that age. They're going to announce this tomorrow. He's going to get a $125,000 signing bonus and probably a black Corvette, which was one of his demands, and he's going to go off to a minor league team in Helena, Montana. But the owners are upset about this, Marv, because they had a gentleman's agreement a number of years ago not to sign players at age 16, and now here the Milwaukee Brewers have done it. So there will be a little bit of static about it. Is this kid far away from the majors? I would think so, but he's really a great prospect. He reminds me a lot of Juan Nieves. Right, who was... Same type of deal. Right. One final thought, expansion. I understand things are beginning to heat up once again.
Well, the Long-Range Planning Committee, which is a group of owners, met last week to talk about expansion. That's their basic responsibility. And out of that meeting, I understand, they have decided that if expansion happens, it will not be as expected in the National League. It will be in the American League, believe it or not. Another 2 teams in the American League, because schedule makers say 14 teams, it just doesn't work.
What imbalance that would lead to.
Right. It just doesn't look good at all for the National League expanding soon.
All right, Hal, we'll be keeping tab on these little bits of information. In fact, we'll keep an extensive scorecard.
Keep the scorecard. You're on.
And we're going to check back. Our baseball superscribe, the baseball editor at USA Today, Hal Bodley, will be back with the return of Harry Carey after these words.
I know most of the guys in the Latin countries, when I sit in the dressing room, they're all sitting around going, and eating Fritos. So they have a problem trying to figure out why they're here. Once I brought an immigration guy into the locker room, and the game was canceled. You know, these guys are regimented. They're put on buses. They're told when to go to bed, when to get up. You know, the sort of with the Dodgers. You know, 5 o'clock, everybody on the bus. Get on the bus. We're going on the bus. They all think it's a trip to Tijuana, and they're going to meet girls. They don't know that they have a doubleheader that day. But in general, they're good guys. I make fun of them, and why not? I'm not getting a dime for this.
And that is accurate. Don suffering these days with his Dodgers and just endearing himself in many areas. On the subject of the bizarre, as we look back at the past week, the most peculiar play of the week. Mets reliever Roger McDowell upset with himself for not handling this comebacker, attempted to slam the ball into his glove, but he missed. Fortunately for the Mets, Howard Johnson was alert. Otherwise, the Mets could have blown the game against San Diego. Early leader for National League comeback honors, Rick Sutcliffe for the Cubs, who won his 7th this past Tuesday. He was 5-14 a year ago. American League, Brett Saberhagen of the Royals, the man who has turned it most dramatically. He won his 7th. He was 7-12 last season. It finally ended for the Milwaukee Brewers, the team that opened the season with 13 straight wins, had dropped 12 in a row, but they stopped the losing streak by beating the White Sox. Another streak was halted last Monday when Ricky Henderson of the Yankees was caught stealing by Oakland. He had succeeded on 31 straight attempts, one short of the American League record. In the broadcast booth last Tuesday in Chicago, a day of happiness as the immensely popular Harry Carey made his return from a stroke. Back to the microphone for the Chicago Cubs, and he was back in old form.
This is Ronald Reagan.
Well, Mr. President, well, what a pleasant surprise.
I know it's Harry Carey Day in the Chicago area, and it's great to have you back.
And we are delighted to have Harry Carey with us from Chicago, where he is preparing to broadcast today's Braves-Chicago Cub game. Harry, first of all, how are you feeling?
I feel great, Marv. Very, very good indeed. I hope that the rain will stay away.
And we're looking at a self-proclaimed new Harry Carey, 41 pounds lighter, tipping the scales, I'm told, now 188. Your doctor said no more late-night drinking, no more late-night eating binges. Is that correct?
Oh, well, I think he's trying to ruin my image. For the first few months, I'll listen to my doctor. After that, I think I might be on my own. Seriously, though, I have to watch my weight because of blood pressure, which leads to a stroke, and I'm not tickled to death at the thought of having another one, believe me.
What was the toughest part of it for you during your illness?
Well, I don't know. I never had any pain through it all. I don't, so it couldn't be that. The realization that I wasn't able to work. Come to think of it, the tough part was the first day or two when I couldn't move my arm, my right arm. I couldn't move my right leg, and I couldn't talk. And you can imagine how I felt. But, you know, that's about the time when the therapeutic value of the mail from the people really came into the picture. I suddenly began reading a box of mail every day. We got up to 15,000. I'm still reading them. And you couldn't help but feel hope from the messages. People I didn't know from all over the country sending me mass cards, prayer cards, letters, flowers, telling me how much they missed me, how much they wanted me back. If a guy couldn't be moved by that, I don't know what you'd ever be moved by.
Harry, you've had a few differences of opinions with managers and players and front office people. Are you about ready to begin stirring it up once again?
Well, Marv, I don't know. You seem to stir it up pretty good with Whitey Herzog, and I think that made you a national celebrity. So if that's what it takes, that's what I might have to do.
Yes, and Whitey and I have been very close since that day. Harry, in 10 words or less, settle this for us. Who was the first to use the phrase, holy cow, on the air? Was it you or Phil Rizzuto?
I was saying holy cow when I was broadcasting both the Browns and the Cardinal games, and Phil Rizzuto was playing shortstop for the Yankees along with a second baseman by the name of Jerry Pretty. Now, Rizzuto said holy cow before me. He was yelling to Jerry Pretty when he tossed him the ball, holy cow, Jerry, why don't you cover second base?
Okay, Harry, thank you very much. And,
thank you very much.
Good talking
Bye-bye.
with you. All right, nice to see Harry back in action again. It all is obviously well in Chicago once again because Harry is still complaining about the cigars of his broadcast partner, Steve Stone. We are closing in on game time. Many of you will see the Dodgers and the Mets from Shea, Vince Scully, and Joe Garagiola at the mic. Some of you will see the Braves and the Cubs with Bob Costas and Tony Kubek. I'm Marv Albert in New York. Baseball is just ahead, but first, this NBC News update with Dan Molina.
Town of Zaragoza, Texas, population 185, was flattened by a tornado that hit just before 9 last night. 28 people are now known dead, 121 were injured, 2 or 3 are still missing. What makes this such a bitter tragedy is that a kindergarten graduation was underway in the town's community center when the tornado hit. 20 youngsters were singing songs, reciting poems, with perhaps 80 friends and relatives looking on. Some managed to outrun the tornado. Many were still inside when the thick cement roof crashed down on them. With their grief somehow shut inside them for now, survivors search for their belongings. Rescue teams have worked nonstop. Dan Molina, NBC News, Zaragoza, Texas.
The National Broadcasting Company, now in its 7th decade of bringing you baseball's memories. Baseball's milestones. Baseball's majesty. And baseball's magical moments. NBC Sports proudly presents the Major League Baseball Game of the Week. Today, from Shea Stadium, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers versus the New York Mets. The Game of the Week is brought to you by Miller Lite. For great taste, there is only one light beer. By Yugo. Buy yourself a little freedom and see how it feels to have your own set of wheels. By Castrol, the motor oil engineered for today's smaller cars. And by Radio Shack, a division of Tandy Corporation.
Hi, everybody. I'm Vin Scully, along with Joe Garagiola. Welcome to Shea Stadium in New York, where the crowd has spent the pregame time looking back to the championship year for New York in 1969, and looking way back, as far back as the early 40s in Ebbets Field in Brooklyn. But standing on the field are the two managers who are very well aware of the present. Howard Davy Johnson for the New York Mets sees a ball club that's on the move, especially since the return of Roger McDowell. The Mets have won 3 in a row and 4 of their last 5. The Dodgers' Tommy Lasorda, he doesn't want to look back because what he sees is very bad indeed. The Dodgers have lost 7 straight. They're in their greatest tailspin since 1961 when they lost 10 in a row. So for both managers, they must look ahead, hoping that times will become better. How do they actually feel about it? Let's meet them both right now and go to Joe.
We're with both managers asking the same question. Davey, your club seems to be going the wrong way. Why?
Well, I'd say early on, losing McDowell, he really hurt the most because I didn't have really a closer. He would go, you know, from the 6th inning on and close the ball game, and he was in 75 games last year. And then, of course, losing Gooden and also Bobby O, our pitching was hurting.
You think you're on the right track now?
Oh, yeah, we beat Fernando last night. I think that's a good sign.
Tommy, your club's going the wrong way. Why?
Well, because of the fact that we're getting good pitch ball games at times and we're not making the plays like we're supposed to. When we were playing very, very good baseball, we were doing the things that it took to win, and right now we're not doing that. We have lost a lot of ball games in the 7 games that we lost that we should have won, Joe, and I think we're going to start turning around today.
Okay, Vin, we asked the question. Back to you.
So a brief meeting with the managers and Davy Johnson gives you the feeling of optimism has returned to the New York camp, and with the arrival of Roger McDowell and the soon-to-be-seen Dwight Gooden, the Mets feel that they're on the move in the right direction. Tommy Lasorda, the eternal optimist, even in the midst of a 7-game losing streak, hoping that things will get better. We'll get to the starting lineups. We'll have all the pregame stats and stories all coming up right after this. Here's the Dodger lineup offensively. Steve Sachs with a 10-game hitting streak at second base. The newcomer, John Shelby, acquired from Baltimore in the Tom Niedenfuer trade, is in center. Kenny Landreau hitting third in right field, and the big man, Pedro Guerrero, in the cleanup spot in left. Mike Scioscia will be behind the plate, followed by Franklin Stubbs at first. Tracy Woodson will be at third base instead of the veteran Bill Madlock. Mariano Duncan at shortstop batting 8th, and the pitcher Bob Welch.
Here is the defense for the Mets. McReynolds is in left field, and I'll tell you, don't sell him short on defense. Last night he threw a man out at second base on the ball looked like a cinch 2-base hit. Keith Hernandez calls him the best left fielder he ever played with. McReynolds is in left, Dykstra in center, and Strawberry hit a tremendous home run last night. He's in right field. Johnson, Santana, and Backman, Hernandez the infield, Carter behind the plate, and Ron Darling on the mound.
Ron Darling, as you see his record, has 5 no decisions, although he is 3-1 lifetime against Los Angeles. Last year, both Darling and Welch shared something in common. They each had games where they had 13 no decisions. For Darling, he has not pitched well. At Shea, 0-2, on the road 2-0, but very high earned run average. And he'll be loosening up, getting ready to go after Sachs, Shelby, and Landreau. We're unhappy today that our viewing audience is increased by 1 because we wish he was out here where he belongs. But Bob Ojeda underwent successful elbow surgery this morning at New York's Roosevelt Hospital. The hour-long procedure performed by Mets team physician Dr. James Parks, assisted by Dr. Fisk Warren. A complete success, we understand. Ojeda will probably leave the hospital Sunday morning, his elbow wrapped in soft dressing, and he'll begin an exercise program under the supervision of Doctors Parks and Warren. So to Bobby Ojeda, our warmest wishes for a speedy recovery and our prayers that you'll come back and be another 18-game winner next year.
They sure do miss him.
I
Talk to
should
Davy
say.
Johnson. They talk about Ojeda. They talk about Gooden, who'll soon come back. When they talk about Darling, too, Vin, it's kind of interesting. Some people just say he's pressing because he realizes how short the pitching was, and he just hasn't been himself.
One thing Darling has to be comforted about, and it concerns all of the Mets starting pitchers, the return of Roger McDowell. That gives the bullpen tremendous balance. Steve Sachs, who had a 25-game hitting streak last year, has a 10-game streak this year, and there's ball 1. 1-0. 2 balls and no strikes. And Darling thought surely he had a strike on that pitch.
He feels like he's getting pinched and getting pinched early.
And that's Dutch Renard behind the plate. Lee Wire, Ed Montague, and Dave Pallone on the bases. And he's behind 3-0.
That's one of the things you learn in a hurry is what you try to figure out what the umpire's strike zone is going to be that day.
3-0 to Sachs. And there's ball 4, so the leadoff man is aboard as the Dodgers, who are in a horrendous tailspin, trying to snap a 7-game losing streak. They're 0-6 on this road trip. This is what has happened with Gooden, Darling, Ojeda, Fernandez, and Aguilera last year and this. And you can see shocking numbers. And for Mel Stottlemyre on the left and Davy Johnson with the mustache, along with Lee Mazzilli, it has been a very tough time. However, you do get the feeling that the Mets now have turned the corner. They've won 3 straight, 4 out of 5. The biggest hurdle for New York, the champions will have to go out on the road and play 19 of their next 22 on the road. A trademark of the Dodgers that has disappeared pretty much has been the stolen base. They've only stolen 24. The only team less than that is Atlanta. Sachs has stolen 6 out of 9. 0-1. So Darling and Gary Carter gestured to each shoulder. Evidently, I would assume that means that Darling is opening up too soon, huh?
That's it exactly. That left shoulder's flying open. He just tried to aim that ball is what he did, and you just can't do it.
1 ball, no strikes. Ball 2, and Carter decides you better go out and talk to him.
There's been no consistency to his wildness. If a fellow was wild high all the time, you'd have something to go by, but he's been all over the place. In fact, when if you're wild high, it simply means you're not bending into it, going into it. He's opening up his shoulder just a bit too soon, and sometimes it just takes a little bit of a conversation like Carter had to break the mood.
So 2 balls and no strikes to John Shelby with Kenny Landreau on deck. And he gets a strike. First one of the day after 6 pitches. He hits it on the 7th. John T-Bone Shelby, along with Brad Havens, coming to the Dodgers in the deal that sent Tom Niedenfuhr to Baltimore.
Baseball is getting specialized, man. Last night, Shelby's first time up didn't have his name on his uniform. Second time up, the seamstress had it there.
That's right. 2-1. He was officially welcomed to the club. Very close. Boy, Darling came over there with a good move. And Sachs just did get back. Last year, the opponents stole more bases against the Mets than vice versa. But the Mets, an incredible club last year, led the league in so many vital departments they could afford to give up a little on stolen bases. 3-1 to count. When you look at the Mets, you saw a team that was really going in the right direction. They've won 90 or more for 3 straight years. The first team in the 80s to do that. 3-1. Sachs goes, and it's popped up. Going out to get it is Backman. Coming in is Lenny Dykstra, and Lenny has the play. 1 down, Sachs holding, and the batter Ken Landreau. Shelby, of course, the Dodgers trying to find out what he can and can't do. He came up last night in a situation that might have called for a squeeze play, but Lasorda said, I had no idea whether he could bunt or not, no idea if he could squeeze. He did have a find out about him playing run and hit on a 3-1 count. 1 down, and Kenny Landreau. Landreau has hit in 9 out of 12, though he has elevated his average up to 270. For the Dodgers, in a sense, they hit rock bottom last night, and the Mets soared in the sense that the Dodgers had their ace Valenzuela leading 3-0 in the first inning against the rookie pitcher, and for them to lose that was a terrible blow. For the Mets to come back and beat Valenzuela was a terrific springboard. Right. 1-1.
That was the first slow curveball he's thrown. Got it over for a strike. And Gary Carter, you go out there trying to find the pitcher's best pitch that day, that time out. And that could very well be. That kind of was a big message right there because his slider and his fastball he was missing.
This is almost an anniversary for Darling, so we'll see if he gets well today. Last year, late in May, he beat the Dodgers going all the way and struck out a dozen, tying his career high. This year, he's had a half a dozen in 2 games.
He missed with the fastball that last time. Vin, if you were guessing, you'd guess for that slow one. And if he threw a strike, well, forget about it. You got to take it. Let's see what happens.
2-1 to Landro. 1 out first inning, just the start of things. So pull up a chair and spend part of the holiday with us. Landro followed by Pedro Guerrero.
I always felt pitchers were undecided when they flipped the ball over like that. Undecided on the particular pitch they were going to throw to the batter when they just wheeled and lobbed the ball to first base. I never liked that too much.
We'll watch Sachs. As we said, the Dodgers not running much at all this year, and in the dirt, and a great save by Hernandez. He looked like a winner of the Stanley Cup, a goaltender on that one.
He was meaning business that time, was Darling, but he throws it badly, and look at Hernandez, one hand.
9 straight Gold Gloves. If he can't catch him, they're uncatchable.
Boy, that was a pickpocket play.
He's something to watch. Two and 1 to count to Kenny Landro. Missed down and away, so Ron is really off to a struggling beginning. He walked Sachs, fell behind a Shelby 3-1 and got him. And remember, the Dodgers played run and hit with Shelby. Now let's see if they play run and hit with Landro. 3-1 to count.
You'd certainly look for it as we watch Amalfitano.
Landro has only struck out, maybe 12% of the time. That makes him a good risk of hitting the ball.
He's not sure of the sign, though, Vin. It took him an awful long time to get in that batter's box.
Right side of the infield, of course, slightly open, with Hernandez on the bag and Backman shading up the middle. The Mets record on Saturday and Sunday will really put you off. They are 1-11 on the weekend. Sachs holding. There's ball 3. In fact, the only weekend game that the Mets have won so far this year was on a Sunday when they beat San Francisco. And the words of Whitey Herzog ring down the corridors of time. Nothing means less than last year. Now we'll see if they play run and hit again. There he goes. And it's hit foul down the left field line and peeling back into the seats out of play. 3-2. Ron Darling last year, in the month of May, had 5 wins and no losses. An earned run average of a little more than $1.50. It was the lowest earned run average in the National League 1 year ago.
And as early as it is, it's a big pitch. If he'd get the strikeout, he could be out of this inning, and he certainly has been staggering.
So 3-2 to Landro, who, as we said, does not strike out very often. So it figures the odds are very much that Sachs goes 3-2 and 1 out. He goes, and it's a fly ball to center field. Dykstra has this one all the way. So 2 down. Sachs holding at first, and that will bring up Guerrero, who is the Dodgers' strong man and their hottest hitter. Guerrero hit a 3-run home run last night. Pete has had 35 RBIs in his last 36 games. First 4 games, he had tendinitis. One of the top hitters in the league at .345. So Sachs at first with 2 down. First inning, no score. High fly ball to right. He hit a home run to right last night. Strawberry at the wall. Leaps up, can't get it. And he hits another home run to right field. Boy, is he on a tear. Guerrero has 37 RBIs now in the last 36 games plus an inning. 12 home runs, 37 ribbies, and he gives the Dodgers a 2-0 lead.
And that's the one thing you want to stay away from, that ball club scoring on you on that first inning. And Guerrero was able to do it last night. He does it again, and it didn't look like he really drove that ball that way. Strawberry thinks he's got to play. He backs up, knows where he is, but just cannot get it.
The killer for Ron Darling is the fact that is the 10th home run that he has given up this year. Twice as many as the next highest man. The bunt by Socia foul, and the count 0-1. Let's take a look at that swing by Guerrero as he goes the other way.
Usually they just drive that ball. He didn't really. He knows he hit it good.
It looked like he was a little late.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't really get into it, but he's so strong. And of course, everybody's talking about the juiced-up ball and 3 or 4 rabbits inside, and they're cutting baseballs open and all that. But Guerrero could hit a rock that far.
And there's a little cue ball into right center field for a base hit, as the modern player calls it, a flare. So Socia follows the home run with a bloop single to right center, and the batter will be Franklin Stubbs. We'll watch Strawberry, and so will Davy Johnson and Mel Stottlemyre on that high fly ball home run.
He really thinks he's got a chance for it. Apparently, the guy that's got a patent on that is that Eric Davis.
Oh,
He
yes.
made another great catch on Rob, the home run.
So Strawberry, so near and yet so far, and it is 2-0 Los Angeles. And Franklin Stubbs, who hit all 7 of those home runs in April. Breaking ball. Darling against Stubbs, 2 down in the first inning. Ron has made 10 starts, and he's given up runs in the first inning, 6 of those 10. Right away, you start wondering if he's warming up properly. Now back 0-2. Stubbs is a feast or famine hitter, and his numbers against Darling pretty much sum up his problem, making contact. Stubbs strikes out just about at least once a game. One and 2. That particular pitch hurts Carter. He has a misplaced vertebrae below the back of his neck near the left shoulder, and it really bothers him when he has to extend his left arm to catch one that's way off the plate. And it also hurts when he turns his head. He says it doesn't hurt him hitting or throwing. Curveball in the dirt. 2-2. Darling, among other things, is a pretty good forkball.
He's been relying on his off-speed pitches. The first strike he got on Stubbs was off-speed. He showed him the fastball. I would tend to doubt. Of course, with 2 strikes, you're going to protect the plate. But I know if I was catching, I'd call for a slow curve right now, off-speed pitch.
So deuce is wild on Stubbs here in the first inning. And there goes Socia, and it's fouled back out of play.
Darling has hardly even looked at Socia.
Mike Socia, of course, has never been considered any base running threat, and maybe because of that, he has stolen 3 out of 4 this year.
Surprise sets in, don't you imagine, when he takes off?
And usually you put a play on. In this instance, with 2 out, they had Stubbs swinging since 2 strikes.
Yeah,
but as you say, they're not holding him. And he is not going. And so Stubbs goes down, and Darling gives up 2 runs, 2 hits, leaves a man, and at the end of half an inning, the Dodgers 2, and here come the Mets. The New York Mets have won 3 straight, 4 out of their last 5. They're 5.5 games back of the Cardinals, and here the way they stack up. Len Dykstra in center field, and the left-hand hitting second baseman Wally Backman, followed by Keith Hernandez at first, the captain of the club, and in left field, Kevin McReynolds. Darryl Strawberry in right field, Gary Carter behind the plate. Hojo Howard Johnson at third base, Rafael Santana at short, and Ron Darling batting 9th. Bob Welch with a record of 4-2, 9-4 lifetime against New York. He's won 6 of his last 7 decisions against the Mets. He, like Darling, had 13 no decisions last year. And Dykstra greets him with a drive to right, and this baby is gone.
When that happens, it's simply coming off the bench saying he's going to try to get ahead of me with a fastball, and I'm going to try to stretch it out, and he did. Woodson was playing in looking for the bunt, which Dykstra and Backman do, but he was going to get ahead of him, and Lenny wouldn't let him do it.
And Lasorda, who saw a 3-0 lead evaporate last night, sees a 2-0 lead cut in half, and Ron Perinoski worrying about Bob Welch's stuff. Lenny Dykstra, who's been hitting .333 for the last 3 weeks in the games he's played.
It's simply a game where you can't take anything for granted, and you figure a 2-run lead by the Dodgers that Dykstra would be up there trying to get on to get something started, draw a base on balls, and boom, he jumped on it.
Well, the Mets beat a tattoo on the Dodgers last night. They had 3 home runs and 3 doubles, 6 of their 8 hits, extra bases. Wally Backman hits Welch pretty well, about 100 points higher against Welch. So it is 2-1 in favor of the Dodgers. First inning as the Mets try to come right back, fouled away.
He's been having his problems, Backman, and he's a videotape kind of guy, and noticed that he was really holding his bat too low before he began his swing, and he's been working on it, and it's the inside pitch where he wants to get jammed and inside out it, but he's been pulling that ball and hitting a routine ground ball to the second baseman. So he's in one of those things, and with videotape now, they can work their way out of it.
Well, it's probably helping him because he's made a marked improvement, and he was hit inside the batter's box. Lasorda thought it got him up along the line, but the plate umpire, Dutch Rennert, says no, and it's just a foul ball. Lasorda was all set to come out and challenge the call.
They always do. Let's see what happens here. Got him early. He was in. Yeah.
Lasorda joining with Rennert. And the count 1 ball and 2 strikes. And then Lasorda has to laugh about it. Wally Backman, in studying those video cassettes, he has picked up about 20 points in the last 5 games. So the studying is paying off. 1-2 to Wally. He is called a switch hitter, but he rarely hits right-handed. In fact, only had 16 at-bats and 1 hit.
Vin, I think that's one of the real positive changes that has happened, where hitting coaches don't have to tell anybody. They bring him in and say, here, you look.
Yeah, right. Foul late into the seats behind the Dodger dugout. Boy, in baseball, they talk about waiting on the pitch. And Backman almost waited until that thing was in Scioscia's mitt. Backman is a busy hitter. He doesn't walk and he doesn't strike out very much. He's called a Bible hitter, right? Thou shalt not pass.
Lollipop corn.
Curveball got him, and Welch broke off a dandy.
It was a beauty.
Take a look at that bender.
On the playground, Vin, that's a drop.
Oh, is that a drop?
Man, he's got some drop today.
Here is El Capitan, Keith Hernandez. First time I've ever seen a baseball captain actually wear the letter C to identify him in a crowd.
That's the first I've ever seen that.
And he's a killer against Welch, hitting over 400.
Comes from hockey, where only the captain can talk to the referee, and if you try to talk to him without the C on that, the referee won't talk to you. Johnny Mariucci one time didn't have the C on. It was the captain, so what he did, he went into the clubhouse, put a C on his undershirt, and then dropped everything and said, here, I'm the captain.
I'm the captain. Davey Concepcion, whom we haven't seen this year, but we understand he wears the C on his shirt now as captain of the Reds. 1-1, the count to Keith Hernandez. He's hitting 11 of 13, and he's been hot, even though he was complaining before the game last night that he's not swinging the bat well. He's hitting .299. And of course, traditionally, Keith tears him up in July. So what's he going to hit?
Those good hitters, they always get me when they say, well, I'm not swinging good yet. And you look, it's .299, .310, .320.
Ground ball to Sachs. And that's the second out. For the New York Mets, as you look at where they are in the standings, 5.5 games back of the Cardinals, one big reason in head-to-head confrontation with the Cardinals have given them a bad time. They've lost 5 out of 6 to St. Louis. The Cubs are 1 game back of the Cardinals, and the Mets have not played the Cubs yet. Kevin McReynolds, 1 ball and no strikes. A solid everyday player, as good as you'd want. And Davey Johnson said he is faster than I thought he was. Ball 2. Johnson pointed to a game the other day where McReynolds was at third with 1 out. The infield was up, and he out-legged a throw to the plate on a 2-hopper to the second baseman.
Joe McIlvain, vice president, said he was the best free agent player he ever saw, and they clocked him at 4 seconds flat after a full swing right-handed. That's really moving. That's Bo Jackson's speed.
2-0. Big, slow breaking ball, and that rainbow's in there. You know, world championship teams rarely make trades. That's a chopper foul. Oh, you could go back to the Tigers. They made a deal. Howard Johnson for Walt Terrell in '84 after winning. The Phillies traded Bob Walk for Gary Matthews after the 1980 season, and the Yankees in '77 and '78 followed with picking up. But by and large, you don't see big deals made by championship clubs. And McReynolds drives it to Shelby in left center, and that's the inning. 1 run, 1 hit as Lenny Dykstra, a red-hot hitter, hits his 5th home run of the year to get the Mets on the scoreboard. Old-timers Day today at Shea Stadium. Time to look back. Game 2 of the 1973 World Series. Raleigh fingers for Oakland. Willie Mays gets his last base hit of his career. Wouldn't you know he would drive in a run. Buddy Harrelson, when he fell down, he hurt his knee, and that was it for Buck. But he appeared today, and he can still swing the bat, and he can still get down the line. Willie Mays, circa 1987. The best baseball player all around I ever saw.
He could do it. Exciting when he grabbed the ball, caught the ball, and hit the ball.
Here's Tracy Woodson. Ball 1. The greatest catch I ever saw Willie Mays make was not the catch he made in the World Series.
I was there too, I think.
Was it the one in Ebbets Field against Bobby Morgan?
No.
Well, it's the one that Willie thinks it was the greatest that he ever caught. It was a drive to left center with the bases loaded. Mays made a diving catch, bounced on the gravel warning track, hit his head on the base of the wall, was knocked unconscious as he rolled over to his back and held the ball on his chest. And Henry Thompson, the left fielder, came over and picked the ball out of Willie's glove and held it up. Mays said, "I remember 3 things about the play," and it's kind of interesting. He said, "I remember catching the ball. I remember Leo DeRocha coming out to see if I was okay. And he said, I remember Jackie Robinson coming out to see if I held onto the ball." That tells you a lot. Fly ball off the hands. Going out to Santana. McReynolds makes the catch. 1 away.
The one I thought, I didn't see that one. The one I saw was in Pittsburgh. In straight center field, dead center field, where they used to have the batting cage.
Oh, sure, you could run forever.
Rocky Nelson hit a bullet, a rocket. And Willie, for one of the few times, turned the wrong way, went back, and then realized it, turned around and stuck up his bare hand and caught it. I couldn't believe it.
Mariano Duncan, the batter. It's 2-1 Dodgers on Old Timers Day at Shea. 2nd inning. Duncan in a horrendous slump. He has 1 hit in his last 27 at-bats, and I really think it's also affecting his fielding. He goes out there with the leather, and he's thinking about the wood. The greatest spirit I ever heard about baseball involved Mays and Charlie Dressen, who is managing the old Brooklyn Dodgers, and it occurred in the Polo Grounds in New York. 1-1. Mays made an incredible play, a leaping catch of a line drive hit by Carl Furillo. He did a 360 in the air, and when he came down, he threw a strike to Wes Westrom, and they doubled up Billy Cox at home plate, and he won the game on that play. Pop fly. and it'll be Wally Backman. 2 down. And here's what I mean about the spirit. The game is over, and all of the writers rush in to see Charlie dressing. And they say, Charlie, what a play by Mays. Isn't that the greatest play you ever saw, blah, blah, blah. And Charlie, as feisty a guy as ever lived, said, oh, yeah? I'd like to see him do it again. That's the big league spirit.
Then you mentioned Wes Westrom. He's in Mesa Lutheran Hospital. I hope he's watching the game today and hope he's feeling better.
Oh, and how? Our best wishes to old Money.
He would have been here, I guess, for Old Timers game. Managed the Mets.
Would never have kept him away. High fly ball to Lenny Dykstra in center field. Ho-hum. So the Dodgers go 1-2-3, and at the end of an inning and a half, the Dodgers 2 and the Mets 1.
An American tradition continues. He reached a milestone in 1941 that to this day has never been matched. Batting over 400, Ted Williams was the splendid splinter. Today, batting champion Wade Boggs swings the hot bat for Boston as the Red Sox face the White Sox or the Phillies meet the Dodgers. The tradition is here. The memories are waiting.
Well, take a look at that cap. I tell you, for me, growing up in St. Louis, it brings back some great memories. St. Louis Browns. Oh, I'd love to have that cap. I wonder if it's a real one, if it is.
You just wonder how, why, and where. You know, he came up with that hat and brings it today. Of course, today is a day of nostalgia at Shea Stadium, Old Timers Day.
How about Eddie Mixes? There's a Brooklyn Dodger hat with the B, but Eddie Mixes, who played in the Old Timers game, had that old Brooklyn Dodger uniform on. I mean, that woolen thing.
That was from 1947. Well, here's Darryl Strawberry. And you talk about a hot hitter. He has a 6-game hitting streak, hitting over 400 in the streak, with 3 home runs and 6 RBIs. And he hit a monstrous home run high off the scoreboard last night. Boy, is he ever loaded with talent. Darryl Strawberry has also stolen 7 out of 11 for good measure. However, as you can see, he's had a tough time against Welch. 2 balls, no strikes. Time. Welch not ready. And of course, with his power, there is certainly nothing automatic. He has a look down at Bud Harrelson.
Tell you, all those hitters, 3-0, they take a look, and I tell you, they get the take sign. Shock sets in.
3-0. In there for a strike, 3-1. Like we're talking about Bud Harrelson, thinking about that run scored on May's base hit, the third base coach for the Mets, Sam Palazzo. There's Sam. Harrelson is now on the bench with Davy Johnson.
It'd be interesting to watch where Gary Carter stands, because they seem to think he was too close to the plate and crouching down too low. They want him to be a little more erect and then go into the ball. When you get close to the plate, tendency for some hitters anyhow is to pull away.
I remember we were talking about that bad back, and it really bothered him playing softball catch with his daughter, and we'll see how it affects his hitting.
He is farther back from the plate. No question about it.
He leads the Mets in an unenviable department. He's grounded into 7 double plays. Dodgers 2, Mets 1. Nobody out, bottom of the 2nd inning. That looked like that fork ball that Welch uses, and he got it over for a strike, and the count 0-1. The Mets have stolen a dozen more bases than the Dodgers. As we mentioned, Strawberry, a threat to go, and a drive down the right field line, slicing foul in the corner and out of play. 0-2 to Gary Carter. We'll pause briefly for station identification. This is the NBC television network. It's 2-1 Dodgers. A home run by Guerrero with Sachs aboard. Dykstra came right back with a leadoff home run by the Mets. And now in the bottom of the second inning, Strawberry the tying run at first and nobody out. 0-2 to Gary Carter. He'll be followed by Howard Johnson. Breaking ball grounded to short. They get one, and there's the 8th grounded into double play against Gary Carter. That was one reason we were thinking that they might put a play on and spring Strawberry. So 6-4-3 double play.
And I mean, it was just a perfect double play ball right to him. All he had to do was come up with it, and it was routine.
So with 2 down, Howard Johnson with a 5-game hitting streak coming up. Rafael Santana on deck. Second game of the 3-game series. Oral Hershiser, Sid Fernandez tomorrow afternoon. 1 ball and no strikes. Howard Johnson with 5 home runs in his last 11 games. One and one. Last year, the Mets whacked the Dodgers, beating them 9 out of 12, winning 5 out of 6 here and 4 out of 6 in Los Angeles. This is only the second meeting of the year. They'll play each other again beginning the 1st of June in California. 1 ball, 1 strike. High fly ball to right field. I think that was a straight change, and Howard was just a little out in front of it. And Shelby puts it away, so the Mets are gone. 2-1 Dodgers. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station. We mentioned earlier about that Whitey Herzog line. Nothing means less than last year. This is where the Mets stood 1 year ago today, 4 games in front of Montreal. They begin the day in 1987, 5.5 back, so that's a swing of 9.5 games. However, as we said at the outset, you do get the feeling of optimism given by Davy Johnson and Mel Stottlemyre that things are beginning to improve with the arrival of Roger McDowell and soon to be seen Dwight Gooden. Ball 1 to Steve Sachs.
Have they ever wrapped Dwight Gooden in swaddling clothes, though?
Oh, yes.
Every pitch, every move, how often he does this, how often he does that.
There's a drive to left field. McReynolds moving over on the track, reaching up and makes the catch for the out. Kevin McReynolds making a dandy to take an extra base hit away from Steve Sachs. And he is still holding at 10. Fine play.
He didn't look like he was sure of exactly where he was. That warning track comes into play right there. He knows he's near the fence, and he still had some room. And makes a good play. Darling watching and rooting, obviously.
And he's shaking his head about the pitch. I never should have let him hit the ball that far. And the batter is John Shelby. Ball 1.
I won't have the numbers right, but I had a laugh when I read in the paper on Gooden. I think it was something like of 196 pitches, 19 of them were hit, or some ridiculous statistic. I can't believe it. They just let him throw the ball.
They're talking about him making his debut here in New York the first week in June against Pittsburgh. 2 balls and no strikes to John Shelby. 3-0.
It'll be one of the few starts in the history of baseball that'll be psychoanalyzed.
Yep.
Why Pittsburgh? Why a night game? Why following this?
It's 2-1 Dodgers. Top of the 3rd inning, 1 out. When John Shelby was with Baltimore, he was a tough man to walk. He was up there hacking away. When he made his debut with the Dodgers last night, you guessed it, first time up, you walk. And strokes it into right center field, base hit. So John Shelby is welcome to the club with his first base hit, a line drive to right center. You can take a look at that swing as a left-handed batter.
I saw him in spring training with Baltimore, and they couldn't get him out the one year he came up to him, and made it a tough decision to send him back down. He ended up staying with the club, and 3-1, he's a tough hitter, and we're liable to see just how good a base runner he is this time.
He had 18 stolen bases last year, and I think, let's see, Lee Wire, I wondered whether that was going to be a souvenir or just the ball was scuffed up. And apparently it's not a souvenir. He just decided it was that line drive hitting the grass, and it did rain here, so it could be a little wet and might have had a grass stain on it. Kenny Landreau flied to center in the first inning.
Interestingly enough, the ball that Wire took out of play is the one Darling won, and he was a little bit upset that it got taken out of play, and I don't care what they would have given him right after that. He was going to throw it out. He has one that he thinks he likes now, but there was something about that ball, probably a dirt spot, a rough spot.
It's another case of a fast runner at first, but with a left-hand hitter up. Maybe you'd like to keep the first baseman on the bag. Backman is still filling up the middle, so the right side of the infield is wide open. And if anything, the Dodgers play a little more cautiously when Guerrero is on deck. Right. 0-1. 2-1 Dodgers. Home runs. Guerrero with a man aboard in the first. Lenny Dykstra leading off in the bottom of the first. Ron Darling, a 15-game winner last year at the 500 mark. 2 wins, 2 losses. If Darling's first name began with an N, it would really have an appropriate set of initials. No decision. 13 last year, 5 so far this year. And maybe, as far as his ratio of innings pitched, he might have piled up the highest ratio of no decisions of any pitcher in history. Well, if he had ND on his license plate, it would make a lot of sense. 0-1. 1 ball, 1 strike. Isn't that amazing? Well, that's a lot of times to go to the well and come up with an empty bucket. 45, no decisions. And threw it away. And down to second goes Shelby, looking back to see about Hernandez, and he'll hold at second. So the error charged to Darling.
He really bounces the ball over there. Hernandez saved him from an error earlier, but this one way out in front of him. See that? Shelby was thinking third base. Look at that. He was taking a good look at where that ball was.
I think he was looking to see who was going to pick up the ball. If Backman, a right-handed thrower, picked it up, I think Shelby might have tried for third. But when Hernandez, left-handed, picked it up, he didn't have to make the full turn. He stopped at second. 1 ball, 1 strike. 2-1.
Closest one was the ball girl.
Right. And she doesn't have a good eye. Ron Darling trying to get himself together. Fouled off to the left and out of play. 2-2.
When you play behind certain pitchers, well, all pitchers you get into a rhythm, but when you play behind certain pitchers, it gets to be a little bit of a chore. And right now, I got to believe that that's what Darling's doing. He's taking an awful lot of time. He's making a lot of throws to first base. It's up and it's back. It's up and it's back. And infielders do not like that at all.
And a lot of times the pitcher pays a big price because of that, the infielder is not ready and fails to make that great play for him.
He's taking a lot of time.
Remember, he got a good play, however, from Kevin McReynolds. 2-2. So Pedro Guerrero coming up. They do have a place to put him. Last night, a 3-run home run in the first inning. And today, a 2-run home run in the first inning, each time going to right field. Strawberry up the ladder, came about a foot or two shy of catching it. So they have the luxury now of bad balling Guerrero if they wish. You have a left-hand hitter with not a great deal of power, Mike Scioscia on deck. 2 out. 2-1 Dodgers, top of the third. Breaking ball hit to third. Johnson sets for the throw, and that's that. No runs, 1 hit, an error, a man left at the end of 2.5. 2-1 Dodgers. Remember to stay tuned as the women compete in their second major tournament of the year, the Mazda LPGA Championship, $350,000 championship, coming up next right here on NBC Sports.
A couple of the old-timers that played, Duke Snyder on the right, Carl Erskine in the middle, and Fred Clare, the general manager of the Dodgers. And this old-timer is really something. Carl Erskine, by the way, is on our board of directors of BATVIN, the baseball alumni team, and the Equitable Old-Timers. We get $10,000 a game and able to help ball players who've had some tough hops in their life.
Oh, that's great.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been able to help some guys, and along with the association in California, so baseball is taking care of their own.
2-1 Dodgers. We're in the bottom of the third. Santana followed by Darling and then Dykstra.
And Erskine looks like a banker, doesn't he?
He does. Even though that slow start, Santana is picking up now. For about 2 weeks, he's hitting close to 320. A busted bat, pop fly. Woodson dodging a spear and makes the catch. Boy, that's a mean-looking piece of wood.
Does that mean the bat's juiced up now? I mean, that ball just splintered that bat. Now, Woodson is watching that ball come off the bat, and he's got to see the bat come at him. Look at him duck the bat and find the ball, fight the sun. He makes the play, but it certainly wasn't an easy play.
Well, I've seen 2 nightmares on broken bats. Seeing Duke Snyder in the box seats. He broke a bat in an exhibition game years ago against the Cardinals, just like that, and the bat pierced the cheek of pitcher Larry Jackson. Remember that?
Yeah.
Awful thing. Foul back. And Steve Yeager, who caught for the Dodgers for a long time, was in the on-deck circle, and a broken bat came over and went right through the fleshy area above the collarbone. I mean, it's a nightmare to see that bat break. 0-2. No balls, 2 strikes. Ball 1. When you talk about Yeager and the broken bat, you might think that the piece hanging down from the mask has something to do with it, but it doesn't. That was for protecting the catcher's throat from foul tips. 1-2. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
And I will continue to campaign as I think about Gary Carter's big toe that put some steel plate in the catcher's foot, because Gary's got a nasty looking toe.
Breaking ball, and that takes care of Darling. Kind of unfair to give a pitcher a deuce like that. So Darling strikes out. 2 down, and the batter now Lenny Dykstra, who took Welsh deep, as they say, in the first inning. A reminder, once again, we'll be selecting the NBC Miller Lite Player of the Game at the conclusion of the ball game.
Now, you would think they'd play Dykstra at least straight away, but Shelby in center field is in right center field. He's got a lot of room in left center.
I was going to say, if they're shading him that way, they see they're going to keep the ball in on top of him, and the first pitch is a breaking ball away.
Well, that's because that first pitch last time was that fastball to get ahead, and all it did was give him a home run.
Now he's behind. 2-0 to Dykstra.
Now, if you're the manager, you let him hit. He's your leadoff man, 2-0.
No.
I would.
Well,
let's see what happens.
Doesn't make me a bad person.
No, no, it really doesn't.
No strikes.
No.
Ball 3.
We'll never know.
Huh?
Now I'd make you take for sure.
Now. Dodgers 2 runs, 3 hits. Mets 1 run, 1 hit. The home run by Dykstra. walking. So with 2 down, the walk to Dykstra will bring up Bachman. Dykstra has stolen 7 out of 9. So Lasorda sits and stews in the humidity here as Bachman comes up.
And you can't take for granted, even though there are 2 outs and a man on first, that Bachman will not bunt the ball to get on base for the big guys. They did that a lot last year.
You know, Dykstra's doing a great job of getting on base. He's been on either by hit or walk now in 17 games out of the last 21. I mean, that's really doing your job as a leadoff man. Wally Bachman, a very solid left-hand hitter. Time. On deck, Keith Hernandez.
He's got that Woodson playing in tight at third base.
Dodgers 2, Mets 1, bottom of the 3rd. Atlanta, Chicago, scoreless in the top of the 4th. Cardinals in Houston tonight. San Francisco, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Montreal, San Diego. One game in the American League, the White Sox failed to score at Boston. New York at California, Detroit, Minnesota, Kansas City, Texas, Cleveland, Milwaukee, and Baltimore at Oakland. 1-0, the count to Wally Bachman.
Socia out talking to Welch. There's really no strategy involved. Just to, hey, you got to throw some strikes, because if these 2 guys get on, then we are in trouble with Hernandez, McReynolds, and Strawberry coming up. We got to get these guys.
1-0, the count to Wally. On the outside corner, 1 ball, 1 strike. Bachman didn't think so.
I don't hear Dutch booming it out like he used to.
No, he gave it the turn, the pivot, and as if he was shooting, but we didn't hear any sound. And flipped that little flipper in there. It looked like the forkball again. 1-2. Somebody in the Mets dugout growling, and Dutch Renner looked over there. You're an umpire, you can't please anybody, I guess. Dykstra's taking a pretty good lead.
It wouldn't be a bad play if he gets thrown out. You got Bachman leading off your
Right.
inning. That's a big, big thing, because you got really 2 great leadoff hitters in Dykstra and Bachman.
To Wally Bachman, and Dykstra not sure as he's taking a tentative lead for the moment, and Bachman looking down at Sam Peloso. He bluffed going, 2 balls, 2 strikes. He sure made Socia come up out of that crouch in a hurry.
Sure did. I would think he'd be going on this one if he's going to run at all.
Atlanta leading the Cubs 1-0. Rick Mailer and Ed Lynch. Lynch, of course, a former New York Met whose dad was an usher at Ebbets Field. This is a day to think of things like that. There goes Dykstra. The pitch is high. He has stolen it. 8 out of 10 for Lenny Dykstra.
He picked an absolute perfect pitch to go on. It was an off-speed pitch, and Socia really couldn't do much until he had that ball, and that gave Dykstra a good jump. Head first slide. He gets in under the tag.
So the Mets are running and making it pay off now. The tying run waiting to be picked up. The Mets are over 80% in success as far as stealing bases. That's a good sign for a ball club to have that kind of speed. 3-2 to Wally Bachman. And it's on the corner. Strike 3 call. ball. Backman can't believe it, and Rennert and Welsh have punched him out. So they leave Dykstra, third strikeout for Welsh, and at the end of 3, the Dodgers 2 and the Mets 1. Great balls of fire. Methinks you have something in your hand.
Well, ball players are really coming up with them. This is the new wristband, and boy, is it fancy. Darryl Strawberry, as you go in and you see it has a embroidered autograph, Strawberry behind him, his face on that. This is too pretty to wear. It really is too pretty to wear.
Mike Scioscia takes outside. Ball 1 as we go to the 4th inning. Dodgers leading the Mets 2-1. There's the straw that stirs the shea. Darryl Strawberry. A good friend of mine in Los Angeles, James Mims, started the idea of taking the sweatband and then putting the picture of the player on it, and it kept going and going and going.
This wouldn't be good for you, though, man, because you never sweat.
I could wear it as a sock. Knee high. In there. 2-1. Scioscia, Stubbs, and Woodson in the 4th inning. The Dodgers had a 2-run home run by Pedro Guerrero. Dykstra followed in the bottom of the 1st with a home run, and that's it. High fly ball to Lenny Dykstra. He's been busy. That's his 4th putout, and we're just starting off the 4th inning. 1 away. Darling trying to settle down, get his rhythm, and Franklin Stubbs will be the batter. Beautiful day in New York. Although the weatherman threw us a curveball, he was talking about heavy thunder showers, etc. We did have some lightning and thunder and a very, very light rain prior to the old-timers game, but it's okay now. Ball 1.
Almost prevented Leo DeRocha from going on the field, get those shoes muddy. And everybody, of course, he looked dapper as always, Leo.
The Lion was here. Ball 2, 2-0.
Boy, it was great to see him. Cookie Lavagetto, Billy Herman, Dolph Camilli.
Mickey Owens at 71 years old catching.
And runs 40 miles a week.
2 balls and no strikes. Want to see the Lion, 1987?
Right out of GQ. There he is.
Holding an umbrella. Make sure the threads would remain dry. Ball 3. You played for him.
Played for him and
as someone
against
who
him.
watched him, I thought he was one of the most exciting, brightest managers the game had ever produced.
I tell you, he was, and I'm going to tell you why.
3-2.
He was the only manager I ever played for and played against that other managers would manage against him and not his team. They'd say, don't let that DeRocha show you up. Don't let that DeRocha do this. And DeRocha never picked up a ball or a bat, but they'd all worry about him.
And that's ball 4 to Franklin Stubbs. Okay, go out for a pass. Here's a long one to Jimmy Cephalo.
Vinny Joe at Wrigley Field. The Braves work the hit and run to perfection. Ken Griffey drops a double down the right field line. Dale Murphy was running on the pitch, and he'll score from first base. It's the Braves on top of the Cubs, 1-0, the top of the 4th inning. Now let's go back to Shea Stadium.
Pretty good knockout punch, Ken Griffey and Dale Murphy. Now it's Tracy Woodson with Franklin Stubbs at first. Ron Darling's second walk. Breaking ball strike.
Yeah, we could hear Dutch up here say strike on that one.
Takes him a couple of innings like a tenor in opera to loosen up.
He got that from his minor league days.
0-1. Stubbs picked off. And Hernandez down to Backman, back to Darling, and Darling to Santana. Santana will tag him out. So Stubbs was trying to get a jump, and they hung him out to dry.
He broke about maybe 30, 40 minutes too soon. And the rundown play was not really worked to perfection, but the result was great. There goes Stubbs, and now he says, oh, why did I do that? And here comes the ball.
And Darling's first pickoff of the year. If you're scoring, 1-3-4-1-6, with Santana eventually running him back and then going right over the top. He just kept on going. So Stubbs with a little Shea Stadium real estate, trying to rub it off, and Woodson up there, busted bat and a looper to Santana. So thanks to the pickoff, Darling breezes through the fourth, and at the end of 3.5, the Dodgers 2 and the Mets 1. Upcoming, Hernandez, McReynolds, and Strawberry. Reality creeping into the toy department as you look out at center field. The flag's at half-mast in memory of the dead of the USS Stark. And on this Memorial Day weekend, a poignant reminder of all those who gave the great sacrifice in service of their country. God bless them one and all. Keith Hernandez, Kevin McReynolds, and Darryl Strawberry. Bottom of the fourth inning, Dodgers 2, Mets 1. Hernandez grounded out to sacks in the first inning. Remember, the Mets have won 3 straight and 4 out of 5, but only 1 game on a weekend this year, for whatever reason. Foul off third, Woodson to the top roller. It's out of play. 0-1. Another precinct is heard from as Floyd Bannister goes ahead with Al Nipper and the White Sox, leading Boston 2-0 in the second inning. Atlanta leading Chicago 2-0 bottom of the fourth. Those are the only other day games. Everything else tonight. That's in there. 0-2 to Keith Hernandez. 9 straight Gold Gloves. He batted in the number 3 slot every start last year for the Mets. Show you what kind of a hitter he is. He is the only man in the major leagues to hit over 300 with men on base in the last 8 years. And for 4 straight years, he has led the Mets in walks.
Kind of interesting. One of the jobs he's got as captain is to get the guys out of the clubhouse because he likes to stay there during infield practice.
Look at those numbers. Consistency, thou art a Hernandez. Welch now fooling with dynamite, going 3-2, and then you have McReynolds and Strawberry to follow. 2-1 Dodgers, bottom of the fourth. Kevin flied out in the first inning, but he hit the ball pretty hard. That was kind of a protective pitch. It was borderline, and Hernandez just had to protect it. Do you believe that the really good hitter like a Hernandez can actually foul a ball off?
Yes, absolutely I do.
Well, what an edge that gives you.
Ah.
3-2 to Keith. And he got the breaking ball and just missed splashing it over third base.
You remember Harry Walker, he'd run you crazy because he was looking for the base on balls. He'd stand up there, and Salahimus would do the same thing. But here's pretty good bat control here. Now, it's an off-speed pitch. He doesn't try to pull it. He tried to hit it in the opposite field.
He went up on his toes and hit it inside out. Still 3-2 to Keith Hernandez. Dodgers 2, Mets 1, bottom of the fourth. Fastball, and he got a piece of that. He keeps testing the bat because he's getting hit just above the hands.
That was a real good pitch by Welch. He came in tight, and Hernandez waited until the last minute. He was going to go to the opposite field. Maybe even looking breaking ball, but he got enough of it to foul it off. But here is your inside-out swing right here. Watch it. It's in tight. There you see it. Slices it off. Good pitch.
3-2 to Keith. Bob Welch trying to get him, opening up the fourth inning. Fastball fouled away. The New York Mets last year finished 21.5 games over the Philadelphia Phillies. The only other time a team led a second-place team by more than that, you go back to the early 1900s. That was the kind of a year they had. It's hit up the middle, but Sachs is there to backhand and get him. Talking about last year and last year's champions, look what's going on in 1987. The Mets are under 500. The Astros are at 500. The Sox are 6 games under. And the Angels, with a pitching staff that has been decimated, keeping their heads above water, 1 game above 500. Davey Johnson, of course, comforted as the other managers are. It's May. The Angels are 3.5 behind Kansas City. Boston 8.5 behind the Yankees. Houston 4.5 behind the Giants. And the Mets 5.5 behind the Cardinals. So that takes care of McReynolds. He's hit the ball hard twice, but he has nothing to show for it. And now here comes Darryl Strawberry. Strawberry, with a 6-game hitting streak, walked in the second inning. Darryl, the only player in the last 4 years to pile up at least 100 home runs and 100 stolen bases. A remarkable talent. Strawberry is 6'6". Ball 2. And he is a rope hard 190. I mean, you talk about body fat. He doesn't know what that means.
I asked him about that home run he hit last night, and he flexed his right arm, and he said, I put a little extra in it, and it looked like it belonged in a baking soda box.
That's pure graphite from head to toe.
Got it. Corked arms is right.
3-0 to Darryl.
Look at him looking at that third base coach. Like, don't you dare give me
You know
a
what he's
take,
saying?
son.
Play it again, Sam.
That's right. 3-0 to Darryl. On deck, Gary Carter. Is Welch going to challenge him? Yep, and it's lined to right, and right at Landreau.
A sinker yet to right field.
Couple of balls hit hard by McReynolds at Strawberry, but the Mets come up empty. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station. We've got 4 innings in the books. The Dodgers 2 runs, 3 hits. The Mets 1 run, 1 hit, and an error. Home runs have been the story. Guerrero in the first inning with a man aboard. Dykstra leading off the bottom of the first. This is Old Timers Day with members of the old Brooklyn Dodgers going back to the early 40s, and one of the greatest, if not the best baseball announcer who ever lived, Walter Lanier Barber, known to his fans, and everyone has read. The most literate, the most intelligent, the best as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with you, Vin, and you worked with him longer than I did, but also the way he worked. I mean, he just worked at his job.
I was so fortunate to just sit there and listen and watch him operate. Incredible mind.
It was good to see him. It was good that Harry Carey's back in Chicago.
And how?
Singing, "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
1-0 to Mariano Duncan. We were hoping that Red Barber would be able to come by the booth and say hello, but he and his lovely bride, Lila Murray, they went back to the hotel to rest. It's kind of hot, and it was a long day for Red. He had hurt his back earlier. Ground ball to third. Johnson will take care of Mariano Duncan, so his slump continues. 1 away, and Bob Wells coming up. Welsh flied to center in the second inning. Bob 0 for 1. The Dodgers have lost 7 straight. They lost 8 straight in 1982, and their worst losing streak in Los Angeles history, 10 straight, 1961. So they're trying desperately to snap that. The Mets, meanwhile, have won 3 straight, 4 out of 5, and they're trying to make a move. So the teams have been going in opposite direction the last couple of days. Slow breaking ball, and then Rainbow drops in. 0-2. Fouled away. It was a little rare, as you see Bill Bueller working on a mitt, the Dodger trainer, but he does almost anything and everything asked of him. And he's repairing a catcher's mitt.
Saw Mickey Owens' old glove today, and it was really a shocker almost, and I have one just like it. I mean, just a little pocket in there rather than that split down the middle. That was something the trainers used to do all the time, fix your webbing.
Bueller will fix your ankle, your stereo, your glove, you name it. He's really something.
He really is.
Wow. Ron Darling was kind of a shock, not that he gave up a home run to Guerrero, but he gave it up with a man on base. He doesn't usually do that. In fact, in his last 2 years, less than 25% of his home runs allowed came with people on base. And this year he's allowed 10 home runs, 7 of them with the bases empty, which is usually what happens to a control pitcher. He's around the plate all the time, and if he does give them up, it doesn't hurt that much. In contrast, now 1 year to the next. And here's Sachs, walked and then was robbed of an extra base hit on a fine play by Kevin McReynolds. Ball 1. Darling throws 2 kinds of forkballs. He throws one that's a real downer, and then he has one that he throws to left-hand hitters that almost acts like a screwball. Shot up the middle, and so Sachs has hit in 11 straight.
And Sachs has been wanting to run when he gets on.
Sachs not only hitting in a streak, that's one thing, but he's hitting over 400 in the streak, so he is a very hot hitter. And now John Shelby fly to center and single sharply to right center in the 3rd inning. Dodgers 2, Mets 1, top of the 5th inning. 2 down, Ron Darling and Bob Welch. Ball 1. We were talking earlier about the Mets and how they came to what happened last year, 108 wins and a championship. It was a club that's been building and building. In fact, they've increased their winning percentage for 5 straight years to get to where they were last year, at top of the world. There aren't many clubs that can do that. Ball 2. The other teams that have increased their winning percentage in the last 5 years, the Brooklyn Dodgers from 37 to 42, Cleveland when they had Tris Speaker, 1915 to 1920, and the Philadelphia A's, who finally recovered after Connie Mack had sold all the good players in 1915. They went from 1920 to 25, increasing their winning percentage each year. Boy, that's a sign of a live organization. Ball 3. So it eventually should not have been too much of a surprise to see the Mets wind up last year winning 108 games in the World Championship.
Darling has now gone to 3 balls on 7 of 19 batters. That's asking for trouble.
3-0 to John Shelby, and it's hard to walk him. Strike. When Shelby was over in the American League, only, well, Ozzie Guillen of the White Sox is the toughest guy to walk over there. But he was averaging, maybe 1 walk every 23 at-bats.
Last time we had this situation, Sachs was running.
3 balls, 1 strike. And he's going. And it's popped in the air around the plate. And Carter signals he's going to take it.
Tough
so
play.
The base hit by Sachs, and they leave him. No runs, 1 hit, and at the end of 4 1/2, Dodgers 2, Mets 1. Dodgers leading 2-1 since the first inning, and the Mets now trying to play catch-up with Gary Carter, Howard Johnson, and Rafael Santana. Carter's long ball has been missing of late. The Mets are hoping that'll get active. Ball one. Gary has 3 home runs, but he has not hit a home run in over 4 weeks. And of course, he's one of the greatest home run hitting catchers to ever play the game. Part of it, I'm sure, is that vertebrae that's given him trouble. 1-1 to count to Gary. Check swing foul, and the count 1-2. And by the way, if we want to talk about home runs by catchers,
Does that count the playground?
42. Joe Garagiola, lifetime batting average 257. I mean, you're talking awesome.
How could a man hit 42 key home runs?
Yeah, key, that's the word. 1-2. Hard ground ball to Duncan. 1 away in the 5th inning, and once again we'll pay a visit to Jimmy Cefalo.
Vintage at Wrigley Field in Chicago. Ken Griffey with his 2nd RBI of the game. The single off former Met Ed Lynch brought Gerald Perry around from second base. The Braves added another run in the inning and lead the Cubs 4-0. Now let's head back to Shea Stadium.
And the batter will be Howard Johnson, who flied to center in the 2nd inning. Welsh has allowed 1 hit so far, and that was the home run leading off the game by Lenny Dykstra. And the forkball missed, ball 1. Howard Johnson, he sure knows about the good life. Last 3 years he's been on 2 world championship teams. Detroit in '84 and of course the Mets last year. In fact, in 3 years he's been on teams that have won well over 300 games. Howard made some great contributions to the Mets last year. In fact, he did a complete turnabout with men on base. In 1985, with men in scoring position, he hit only 200. But last year, with men in scoring position, 362. Ball 3. If you're wondering about players who have had the chance to play with world championship teams in both leagues, Howard would become the 27th in history to have that honor, and good fortune, I might add. In there, 3-1. Oh, what a year in New York. World Series rings, Super Bowl rings. And ball 4. So with 1 out, Bob Welch walks his 3rd man, and it'll bring up Santana, who popped up in the 3rd inning. Shortstop. 2 runs, 4 hits for the Dodgers. 1 run, 1 hit for the Mets. Lasorda was visibly annoyed when Shelby popped up in the 5th inning. We were talking about a manager and his first impressions of a new player. And twice now he has allowed Shelby to swing 3-1, and each time he popped it up.
We're seeing a disagreement. Socia wants the right fielder, Landreau, to move in, and he looked over to bench, and Lasorda moved him in, and he backed up, and now there's a little bit of confusion.
Now Kenny's coming up a good half a dozen steps in right field.
It's really a chain of command. Don McMahon is up here in the press box with the walkie-talkie. He gives it to Malfitano, but it was Socia who was initiating that move, because now Landreau's starting to sneak back like all outfielders do.
Isn't that amazing?
It really is.
Outfielders, they come in grudgingly and then always try to sneak back. And there goes the runner. Swung on and missed. The throw, he's in there. Howard Johnson picks up his 8th stolen base, and he is 8 out of 9 as the Mets' success rate continues to grow.
He had a good jump, but Mike Socia had a little bit of a problem, almost like he double pumped. It was a straight steal. You could see him with 4 good steps before Socia got that ball, but he had a little trouble getting that ball out of the glove.
Tying run at second base with 1 out. Santana and Darling trying to pick it up. Santana 0 for 1. 1 ball and 1 strike.
Here's Socia now. Watch him when he gets that ball. One-handed. Now, he didn't have a good grip on it. It looked like he might have been going for the seam.
Yeah, that's what it looked like to me. He was spinning the ball
trying
to
to
get
spin
the seam.
it to get the seam so it wouldn't sail.
1-1. Breaking ball, and it might have been that fork ball because he throws it so that it has a hump in the middle of it.
He's got to go for the strikeout here and then get Darling. He doesn't want that Dykstra up there. That stolen base just changes your whole thinking, man. You got to get these 2 hitters.
Talking about Howard Johnson having stolen 8 out of 9. His high with the champion Tigers, he stole 10. He's well on his way to pass that. 1-2. Just a big out with Darling on deck, and Socia trying to slow him down. Dodgers 2, Mets 1. Bottom of the 5th inning, 1 out. Duncan trying to bird dog Johnson a little. Fastball got him looking. Oh, Santana was guessing, and he thought it was outside. He says it was that far outside, and Rennet says him take a hike. And Rafi keeps gesturing, which incites the crowd, which means he's on thin ice in his relationship with the plate umpire. It's one thing to argue, but when you gesture so everybody can see it, it's another story.
And I'll tell you something. The conversation usually runs the same when you do that. The umpires will say, don't you be trying to show me up because you were guessing.
I'll tell you one thing. When you're hitting 8th in a 1-run game and the pitcher's following, don't you think that pitch was a little too close to take?
It was way too close to take, and he probably will be told about it.
Well, here's Darling. 0-1. Darling struck out in the 3rd inning. As a hitter, however, he has 3 RBIs this year. And all 3 hits have been doubles. 0-1. That's on the corner with the fastball. That just reminds Santana that was the exact same pitch.
I wouldn't imagine that Wells should fool around. I mean, get him on 3 pitches if you can.
0-2 to the history major at Yale, Ron Darling. Breaking ball, 1-2. So in the inning, after Carter grounded out, Howard Johnson walked and stole second. Santana called out the 4th strikeout for Welsh. And now Darling up there with the count 1-2. Says you're gone. That's 5 strikeouts for Bob Welch, and the Mets leave the tying run at second for the 2nd time in the last 5 innings. It's 2-1 Dodgers. Here's another edition of Baseball Remembers. In the 1941 World Series, the Dodgers looked like they were going to win the game, but Hugh Casey's pitch to Tommy Henrich got away from Mickey Owen. The Yankees went on to win the game and the series. Mickey is still there at 71, chasing pitches around the plate. And to his credit, it seems to me, after that 41 season had lapsed where the pain disappeared, Hugh Casey admitted he threw a spitter and crossed him up.
Yeah, and it's a shame that that's the play you remember for a great career. I remember him coming up with the Cardinals. I was just a kid, and then later years, in fact, I did a Baseball World show with him when he was the sheriff of Springfield, Missouri. I mentioned that he runs 30 miles a week. When he was running for political office, he started his campaign by running from Royal Stadium to Busch Stadium.
Wow.
There's a lot of cars can't make that trip.
That's right. Mickey Owen, a name out of the past, along with so many here today. And there's ball 1 to Kenny Landreau. Old Timers Day, featuring the 1969 championship Mets, the Impossible Dream. And then Brooklyn Dodgers, going back to the late 30s and early 40s. Strike to Landreau. And Rennet now is giving out that call. Landreau flied to center and struck out. 0 for 2. The Mets have been trying to play catch-up since the first inning. They left Dykstra at second base in the third, Johnson at second base in the fifth. And of course, if the Mets get in front, they become a much more formidable team than they were in the early portion of the year when they didn't have Roger McDowell. That's a strike. And you can bet the opposition in the league is very much aware of that. The Mets have lost 20 games this year. 10 of the 20 they've lost in the 7th inning or later, which points up the absence of McDowell, who missed 5 weeks because of the hernia operation. But Roger is back, and is he ever? And the Mets are therefore much stronger. Not much of a swing. Landreau is absolutely fooled. You talk about the express leaving you on the platform. That was past him. So Landreau had to be guessing something else, and it's hard to go up there looking for anything but the fastball. Well, this will result.
You can watch it. Right up there, he makes a decision to try to foul it off, doesn't get a piece of it.
So with 1 out in the 6th inning, the batter is Pedro Guerrero, a 2-run home run and a ground out. 1 for 2. 4 strikeouts for McDowell. That's fouled away. Guerrero, very much the offensive player, and each time he goes up there, he's hacking away on the first pitch. Oh, did I say McDowell? Excuse me. Just thinking about Roger. 0-1 to count.
You know, talking about him, what's he got? 1 win and 3 saves already. He's been back 20 minutes.
That's right. Been in 5 games, won 1 and saved 3.
Makes you a pretty smart manager, doesn't it?
Oh boy. Oh, 0-1 to count to Guerrero. For Darling to be hit by lightning in the first inning also points up the fact the Mets have had 3 10th inning home runs kill them. Grand slams by Tommy Herr and Tim Raines against Jesse Orozco. And there was a 10th inning home run hit by Jeff Leonard against Jeff Innes. Well, those are other times where the Mets feel they'd have been much better off with the sinker baller out there. 2-1 to Pedro Guerrero. Dodgers have been on a very painful road trip. They're 0-6, and they're in the middle of this 7-game losing streak with games today and tomorrow. And then they go home, and they will open up with Montreal at Dodger Stadium. They have a 9-game homestand with the Expos, the Phillies, and the Mets. And Bob Welch biting on a nail and trying to break the string as well. 3-1 to Guerrero. This is what Guerrero means so much to the Dodgers, with and without. The Dodger lineup would figure with Guerrero, Marshall, and Madlock. That's what they figure, but they don't get it. They had Guerrero and Marshall in 1 game last year, and they had Guerrero, Marshall, and Madlock in 1 game this year. That's all. Pretty tough to pull the wagon without those horses.
Pretty tough is right. What was it, the analogy that Davey Johnson used with these guys like good and missing? He said it's like playing golf without your putter, your driver, and your sand wedge.
But you can understand, he played Shinnecock the other day, and that's where they had the U.S. Open. From the back tees, from the stones, right? Shot 76.
He must have had his driver, his putter, and his sand wedge.
Yeah, he did. It's 2-1 Dodgers, top of the 6th inning. It was very quiet as far as air traffic is concerned, but all of a sudden now the big jets go thundering overhead at Shea. 0-1. 1 ball, 1 strike. Let's hear from other precincts. The White Sox leading the Red Sox 3-0. Floyd Bannister and Al Nipper in that one. And Atlanta leading Chicago 4-3 now in the 5th inning. That game began with Rick Mailer, and he was going against Ed Lynch. The other day they had 7 home runs in the game at Wrigley. So that thing is never over.
You know, talking about those planes flying over and looking at Hernandez, he says the wind swirls so much here, the flag doesn't tell you the story, but when they fly directly overhead, the planes, that means it's blowing out. How about that?
Okay.
That's really getting down to the oomph degree.
1-1, the count to Socia. And there goes Guerrero on a pitch out, and he's hung up. So Keith Hernandez running him towards Backman, and that's that. So that was a hit-and-run play, and there was no way that Socia could go near a pitch out. And Guerrero nailed easily. For Lasorda, at least he can count his blessings that Guerrero didn't try, nor was he forced to slide. He's seen Guerrero break a leg. He's seen him jam a shoulder. Just the other day, Guerrero went in head first and jammed a finger. It's small consolation, I guess, but at least he went out on his feet.
You could see Guerrero watching the play all along. He just looked back, and now he's howling, put the bat on the ball, but there was nothing that Socia could do. It was a good pitch out by Darnay. He gave Carter a lot of room. And I'll tell you, man, that is really no man's land when they do that to you.
Just look what's happened now. Lasorda is really frustrated over what's been going on, even though he's leading. Ground ball to Hernandez. That'll do it as he feeds Darling coming over. Twice Lasorda played run and hit. That failed. Once Stubbs was picked off when he wanted to have a hit and run, and now Guerrero is nailed on a busted hit and run play, and it's still 2-1. Blue suit, white shirt, striped tie, and sunglasses. Mr. Ron Hunt.
He's got quite a program going in his hometown out right outside St. Louis. He's got an 81 game schedule, and he's taken some high schoolers to Holland this year to play. And he's got a couple kids out of New York living with him. They work to keep the program going, and he just wants it. It's good for baseball, and I hope it works for him. He wants to make it nationwide.
Lenny Dykstra, Wally Backman, and Keith Hernandez. If you go back to the first inning, that's where the fireworks were. It was 2-0 Dodgers, and Dykstra coming up to lead off, took the first pitch and hit it out of town.
And the second time he came up, he drew the base on balls, and Wells started him out with 2 curveballs. So this is a kind of a critical time at bat to see how Wells works it.
When Dykstra hit that home run leading off in the first inning, it was the 3rd time this year he's led off a game with a home run. By the way, we couldn't finish talking about Ron Hunt without mentioning 2 small facts. That's a strike. Number 1, he wore the livery of both the Mets and the Dodgers. And number 2, he was hit by pitches 243 times in his career. 243, and he's still walking around.
They say he used to practice that in pepper games.
0-1. Dykstra, not much of a swing on that pitch. He was fooled. 0-2. Hot hitter. Ron Hunt might have been hit by a pitch just for old time's sake in the old timers game. There he is. What was it they said Stengel said in the early days to some hitter, go up and take one in the neck? I think it was Rod Keneal. Go up and take one in the neck. Meanwhile, Dykstra has a red neck. Down he goes. Bob Welch, who's been living on the corners, picks up his 6th strikeout. And Wally Backman, the batter.
Here's that pitch to Dykstra. Once again, if nothing else, too close to take.
So Lenny Dykstra, the pride of Garden Grove in California, 1 away, and here's Wally Backman. 4-1.
He's got Woodson in at third base, Backman does. Sachs is back at second base. He likes to drag that ball if he's going to bunt. Drag it past the pitcher. If he's able to do that, he's got a base hit.
Little roller, kicking foul. Backman has struck out twice today. And he is not a fellow who strikes out. He had only struck out 9 times all year. And for him to be nailed twice is quite a surprise. And for that matter, since he is basically a left-hand hitter, he had only struck out 6 times all year from this side of the plate. The Bob Welch. with a half a dozen strikeouts trying to nurse a 2-1 lead. And that's on the corner. Welch is high in strikeouts. Last year in April, he struck out a dozen members of the San Diego Padres. One and two to Wally Backman. 2-1 Dodgers. Bottom of the 6th inning. Late, and he just kind of fly swatted that thing. Remember that swing that Dykstra took? Now this one by Backman. The hitters are certainly out of sync as far as thinking with Welch. They're not having good cuts at all.
Well, Welch has got great control of 2 pitches, that overhand curveball and that fastball, so there's no case of sitting on anything. I mean, when a guy gives you 2 pitches to work with, you can have some fun behind that plate.
And as we said, he, like Darling, also throws a forkball. 1 and 2. Welch was up there. He was up in the top 10 as far as strikeouts for the year last year, over 180. 1 and 2. Little fly ball down the left field line. Foul.
That was last 2 pitches. Now was a good fastball on the outside part of the plate. He just fouled off. That was a good curveball that was low in a good spot. So he's in pretty good shape.
One and 2. The count to Wally Backman. 1 away, bottom of the 6th. 2-1 Dodgers. The crowd kind of lulled by the humidity and the pace of the game. Both Welch and Darling taking a lot of time. Here's the 1-2 pitch. Fastball and a one-hopper backhanded by Duncan, who gets him. It's 2-1 here, Dodgers. Let's pay another visit to Jimmy Cephalo.
Vin and Joe, the Cubs are mounting a comeback at Wrigley. They were down 4-0, but have scored 3 runs in the bottom of the 5th. This Jerry Mumphrey single scored Gary Matthews, and the Cubs are back in it. They trail the Braves 4-3. Now back to Shea.
Well, we have 2 out here, bases empty, bottom of the 6th. 2-1 Dodgers. And Keith Hernandez grounded out twice. He's played pepper with Steve Sachs, who is out on the grass a foot or so. Increase the range a little bit against a man who doesn't run that well. Keith fouls it off. 0-1. The grass here at Shea and the dirt here at Shea, part of the story of 1987. They have changed the dirt here. And Davey Johnson says it is now a much faster infield, and the infielders don't like it. There's a base hit to left with 2 out.
They get less dust with it. It's less clumpy, if that's the word. Pete Plum, the groundskeeper, talking about it. I tell you, it looks better. It looks great.
Oh, yeah. And maybe it'll just take a little while for the infielders to grow accustomed to the place, to paraphrase My Fair Lady. Because the Mets came into this game, they were 10th in fielding, which is not the mark of a championship club. And I'm sure there are those who will say, well, the new infield's got us psyched a little bit. Maybe.
10th in fielding, you'd be complaining if you were playing on carpet.
Mets with only 2 hits, the home run by Dykstra, now the 2-out single by Hernandez. And here's McReynolds in the dirt. Is the pitch, ball 1. And Welch wants another ball. McReynolds, trying to keep the inning alive, has hit the ball very hard against Welch. Lined out to John Shelby in left center and hit a bullet at Tracy Woodson in the 4th. Kevin has also made a fine defensive play. So he's been very visible in this tough 2-1 game in the 6th inning with 2 out, and Keith Hernandez at first. McReynolds 7 home runs, 22 RBIs. Fastball picked up that outside corner. Boy, Welch has been living out there. So far, so good.
The thing that's also a plus is McReynolds just kind of walks around, didn't like the call, is that the hitters are not sure exactly where that pitch is, but Dutch has been calling it all day long.
fly ball into right center. It's playable. John Shelby is calling. Puts it away. So McReynolds a fly ball, and they leave Hernandez. It's 2-1 Dodgers at the end of 6. We'll be back after these messages from your local station. Old Timers Day at Shea. We salute the Brooklyn Dodgers from the late 30s right up to their last year at Ebbets Field, and the year of the impossible dream, 1969 New York Mets.
When you see him walk on the field, memories just pop in. You see Ron Swoboda, you think of the great catch he made. Tommy Agee, the same thing. Al Jackson was there.
Great. Just great to see them all, and I'm sure the folks here at Shea really enjoyed bringing back the memories of '69. They were well worth looking back at, too. Franklin Stubbs will start it off in the 7th inning. Stubbs struck out in the 1st inning, walked, but then was picked off with 1 out in the 4th. Tough game. Dodgers 2, Mets 1. How they've been doing in 1-run games. The Mets are 7 and 9 in 1-run games, but the bulk of them that they lost on the road. They lost 6 out of 7 by 1 on the road. The Dodgers in 1-run decisions, worse, 4 and 8.
Darling again with a 3-ball count.
And there's ball 4. Stubbs, of course, with his power, had the green light to rip away. 4 walks given up by Ron Darling. The White Sox are ringing out the Red Sox. 6-0 in the 4th inning. And Atlanta holding on now 4-3 in the 6th inning in the beautiful confines of Wrigley Field, in the words of Ernie Banks. And a new report. Baltimore, Oakland, no score in the 1st. Mike Boddicker and Dave Stewart.
Stubbs was looking for signs. He doesn't know what's happening. Hernandez has set up his play. Now, Stubbs is really confused over there.
Here comes Hernandez, and it's a full swing at the plate. It was a full swing and a half. And Keith wants to make sure Darling doesn't come over there when he's coming to the plate.
Well, that's what he does when he goes over there. He'll tell him, hey, don't come over there on the first pitch, or I'm going to come in and go back, come over. He leaves nothing to chance.
The other thing, too, he says the way he positions his glove is usually a sign for the pitcher either to come over or not. 0-1. And he's coming and then holding, and the pitch is high. 1 ball, 1 strike.
They're not sure that Woodson is going to be not playing a hit and run here, because Lassard has been trying to manufacture a run, and you can see Amalfitano going through his gyrations.
He's played run and hit twice, played hit and run once. He had a busted hit and run play, and he's 0 for 4 in that maneuver.
Carter not immune to putting on pitch out plays.
And Stubbs might be a little intimidated from having been picked off in the 4th inning.
Good shot of Carter watching the third base coach. There's a lot going on.
Fastball hit, bad hop off Howard Johnson's left arm into left field. Stubbs going to third, and the Dodgers get a big break. That might have been a double play ball. Instead, they have runners at first and third and nobody out. Well, we were talking about the new infield, right?
Right.
Wouldn't you know, something would pop up.
Tell you, that was a double play ground ball. Darling should have 2 outs and nobody on, and now he's in a big jam with first and third. It looked like a routine ground ball when it started out. Johnson right in front of it, and boy, she takes a vicious hop, and off she goes, and it's first and third, and Darling's in big trouble.
They ruled it an error, even though that ball kangarooed and hit Howard Johnson up on the left bicep and then kicked out into left field. And he's muttering and mumbling about the ground. Now, that was a tough error. Last night, on what appeared to be a routine ground ball to short, Mariano Duncan just caught in between hops, and yet they gave him a base hit. So first and third, nobody out in the 7th, and here now is Duncan. Foul ball. Duncan, in looking at his slump, has 1 hit in his last 29 at-bats. That's one reason I think he's committed 9 errors at shortstop, because his inability to hit has been weighing heavily. Nobody out. Stubbs at third, Woodson at first. They tried to squeeze last night with Sachs. They didn't know what to do about trying to squeeze with Shelby, so they didn't ask him to do it. And of course, in this combination with the pitcher following, there's always the threat of Duncan trying to squeeze Stubbs in.
And make it a safety squeeze, where the worst you get out of is second and third and 1 out.
0-1.
Vin, you talk about his slump. The guy was in the ballpark that coined the phrase, I think says it perfectly, Campanella. Said it begins with your bat, goes to your head, and ends up in your stomach. Can't be so right.
Well, we see if Lasorda has a play on. 1 ball and 1 strike. In the dirt with the fastball, ball 2.
Now they got Darling in the box.
Yeah, this is the ideal count if Lasorda, who loves to squeeze, if he is ever going to squeeze, this is his situation. 2 balls and 1 strike.
Carter can't do anything. He's back there with handcuffs on. They want to look at the ball.
You know what? If you're looking over at Lasorda to get a sign, a lot of times what he will do, you know, when that ball hit off Howard Johnson's arm and went out into left field, when Stubbs went around and got to third, automatically Amalfitano looks long before Duncan came up to see if the squeeze is on. He'll give it to him as soon as the runner arrives at third, so that when they're looking now, he won't give it. Well, they're not going to squeeze now. 2-2. And Lasorda is really muttering.
The other thing managers like to do is sometimes decoy signs and maybe have somebody 2 or 3 people removed from him and say, you give the sign.
He was mad enough for him to throw away his gum. 2 balls, 2 strikes. First and third, nobody out in the 7th. Dodgers 2, Mets 1. Slump continues for Duncan. A big strikeout for Ron Darling. Now, you see, Lasorda, we can't read the signs. We don't know the signs. I don't want to know the signs. But just to give you an idea, if there was a play, he would have long since given the squeeze. That was just a maneuver. But what they will do, they have what they call a repeater sign, and I would think every manager has that. Let's say you're the hitter, and let's just say the sign I give you is I touch my right cheek with my right hand, and that means something. All right, I give it to you. And let's say it's a bunt and you foul it off. And you look again and I don't give you anything. That means the sign is still on. If you look and you see him repeat the sign, that takes it off. It's just an old baseball maneuver of signs called the repeater. All right, here's Welch. Now, one thing in this spot, you want to look at Welch and find out, has he sacrificed much this year? How does he do with the bat? Well, he has had 3 sacrifices. In fact, more than any other pitcher.
He's got to get Sachs up there. That's what he wants.
Here's the bunt. And instead, he takes ball 1. So he might now just try to get Woodson to second base on the sacrifice, and Sachs, who has hit an 11 straight, on deck. Aha, the big ball, and Detroit finally gets a win. 122-102 over the Celtics. We understand that Larry Bird was ejected in the 4th quarter for fighting. And for you folks who are watching the big ball, welcome to Shea Stadium. We got a dandy here. Dodgers 2. Guerrero hit a 2-run home run in the 1st inning. The Mets 1. Len Dykstra homered in the bottom of the 1st. And now, to bunt or not to bunt?
Well, with all the signs you talk about, repeaters and rub-offs and takeoffs and what have you, it always boils down to, I didn't get the sign. And the coach has to just go up there and tell him what's going to happen and let him go through a bunch of signs now, which obviously decoys, and now he's going to go back. He doesn't know the signs.
Yep. That's embarrassing for the player, infuriating for the coach, and there is no word to describe how it makes the manager feel.
I'm telling you. Well, we talked about a guy, DeRocher. Herman Franks was coaching one day where he hollered in. He said he wants you to bunt. and the batter backed down, and he said, yeah, well, get on him. He wants you to bunt.
1 ball and no strikes. The count to Bob Welch. 2-1 Dodgers. 7th inning. 1 out. 1st and 3rd. And a lob throw to Howard Johnson.
And now Welch is still looking for a sign down there because Joey, obviously, Malfitano is switched off, and he's just not sure.
Tracy Woodson is short lead at first. Stubbs down the line from third, squeezing, and the bunt is down. The shovel to the plate. He is out at the plate. Oh, what a play. Boy, is that exciting. Oh, that was some play by Ron Darling, I'll tell you. Great play.
It was a great play by Darling and a good play by Carter, who just does not leave his post. Darling didn't have a chance to pick it up and do what he wanted to do. He really had to shovel it to him. Now it's a suicide. Here comes Stubbs. Now watch what Darling does with the glove. Just flips it. Look at Carter. He had that plate blocked, and there's the ice cone, the ice cream cone there, and that ball pops out. Carter can't go out and get it, and a good play by Darling. And he just barely caught that ball, Vin.
You know, Darling not only threw the ball accurately with the glove, he threw it in the perfect place. He threw it up along third into the runner. And even Lasorda said quickly, good play. It hurt, but he had to agree it was thoroughly professional. Though it is still 2-1 Dodgers. But Woodson at second, Welsh at first, and Lasorda is 0 for 5 as far as successful outcome of a play put on.
But you know how many times when you put on a suicide squeeze play, if they just put it in play, he's going to score. All that confusion had to add and go against the Dodgers.
And I'll tell you, if Darling shovels the ball anywhere but where he shoveled it, to the third base side of home plate, Stubbs is in. It was a great play under considerable pressure.
I tell you, Stubbs had it timed perfectly, Vin. He broke right now, and Darling made a great play.
So 2 on. 2 out in the 7th, 2-1 Dodgers, and here's Sachs, 1-1. Fastball hit up the middle, base hit. Here comes Woodson. Dykstra is going to go to the plate, not in time, and the Dodgers get the run anyway, and Sachs is now 2 for 3. It is 3-1 Los Angeles.
Well, that's what Lasorda wanted, was to get Sachs up there, and that's the reason for the bunt. He tried to pick up a bonus with the suicide squeeze. Of course, you run the risk if he pops it up, but when he got it down on the ground, he gives Sachs a chance to knock it in, and he does.
I'll tell you something. The guy who was saying squeeze, schmeeze, base hit my foot is Howard Johnson at third base. Because if that ball doesn't take a bad hop and hit Howard Johnson in the arm, they have a double play ball and the inning is over. There's no fuss, no feathers. Instead, it is 3-1 Dodgers in the 7th inning. And John Shelby up there with runners at first and second. Oh, 1. Shelby flied to center on a 3-1 run and hit play. Single to right in the 3rd, popped up on a run and hit play in the 5th inning. Though Lasorda is learning a little bit about the newcomer. Ground ball, fair ball, great play by the Gold Glove, and they got him on a tumble by Darling. What an inning. Keith Hernandez and Ron Darling combined to take a base hit and a runaway, but the Dodgers still managed to get one. Look at this again.
And he has to wait for Darling to get there. He makes sure, and Darling makes a fine play sliding into first base.
Boy, he's lucky he didn't get hurt. So it is 3-1 Dodgers in another edition of the 7th inning stretch. We're going to the bottom of the 7th. Dodgers leading the Mets 3-1, and we had 2 beauties there in the top of the 7th. Darling's play on the squeeze by Welch, and then the combination play, Hernandez and Darling to get Shelby. But the whole inning, as far as the Mets are concerned, wrecked on that bad hop that got away from Howard Johnson. Here it is again, because it is such an important play. Tracy Woodson hit a ground ball, and watch it come up right off the left forearm, or maybe the bicep of Howard Johnson, and on out into left field. And it was ironic that it would happen right after we were talking about the new infield here at Shea.
But I'll tell you one thing, if you have any doubts about Mr. Darling's ability to field his position, he sure erased every doubt that you might have, because on that squeeze play, it was just a perfect play. When he shovels the ball to Carter, and I tell you, as a catcher, you don't want anybody wishing you good luck. Just watch this. Watch where he gets the ball to Carter. Now, he scoops it up with his glove, doesn't have time, flips it, and it's on the third base side, and Carter's got a chance to block the plate and almost drops it. You can see that ice cream cone effect. Carter holds it up, and then he comes back and makes that big play at first base.
I tell you, that was enough of an inning to grow your beard, and that's what's happened to Darling. It is 3-1 Dodgers. Darryl Strawberry, Gary Carter, and Howard Johnson in the bottom of the seventh. Straw has walked and lined out to right. Ball one. The Dodger infield deep and around to first. The outfield around to right. The Dodgers backing up Welch in the bullpen now. Kenny Howell and Matt Young are down there. 1-0. Now back. There's the pen. That's Matt Young, the left-hander, and Kenny Howell. Welch has 2 complete games in 8 previous starts. Gene Walter and Jesse Orozco, 2 left-handers in the Mets pen. 2-1 to Straw. Paid attendance today, 38,606, with over 39,000 in the house. Good crowd, particularly considering the rain that we had and the rather dire predictions by the weatherman. 3-1. Well, Strawberry swinging 3-1 last time up, lined out to Kenny Landreau. Three balls, 1 strike. Ooh. 3-2. Oakland, Mark McGuire, the kid from USC, hit his 15th home run to lead 1-0 against Baltimore. Boy, is he hot.
Is he ever?
Now back. Boy, last year Canseco, Mark McGuire exploding this year, and he's bigger than Canseco. He's like 6'5".
There's so many good-looking young players. Joyner, Cavilla, Canseco.
Eric Davis, who is setting the National League on its ear.
It's a franchise. Will Clark. Just go on and on. Look at the guys the Cardinals bring up to help them, and boom, they take off.
3-2 to Strawberry. Carter on deck, and then Howard Johnson. High pop-up behind the plate. Socia coming to the screen. 1 down. Let's get another update, and once again, here's Jimmy Cefalo.
Vin and Joe at Wrigley. Ken Griffey, just a week off the disabled list, is back in form. He's now 3 for 4 on the afternoon with 3 RBIs. This 7th inning single scored Gerald Perry. They're in the top of the 8th at Wrigley with the Braves leading 5-3. Now back to Shea Stadium.
The batter will be Gary Carter, who hit into a double play and grounded to short. So the kid is 0 for 2. Dodgers 3, Mets 1, 7th inning. Ball 1.
They've been making him pull the ball. He is standing a little farther from the plate, as we pointed out. But Welch has been able to really hit that outside corner.
Fastball, and he hits it to center for the base hit. So that will make Howard Johnson the tying run at the plate. Take a look at Gary Carter taking a look. Look at the eyes in the face.
They really open up wide. A lot of hitters do that.
So Carter at first, and Howard Johnson, the pivotal figure in that run-scoring 7th inning. He has flied to center and walked, stole a base. He has a little 5-game hitting streak. The 2 sides of the pitching coin for the Dodgers, they lead the National League in complete games. They have 8. But if Lasorda is reluctant to go to the bullpen, you'll know why, because they are last in the National League with only 4 saves. And one of those saves by a starting pitcher, Oral Hershiser. 4-1. Davy Johnson, of course, now that he has Orozco and McDowell, certainly wouldn't hesitate to make a move. And there's Jesse now. 1 ball and no strikes to Howard Johnson. One out, 7th inning. Dodgers 3, Mets 1. In there. Two and 0 to Howard. Gary Carter at first. Stubbs not holding. He's back of the runner, especially with a left-hand hitter up there. Missed that outside corner. He's been sharpshooting that area all day long. 2-1. Swing for a strike. Gene Walter up again to join Jesse Orozco. So they're working their way down to Darling's spot with Santana due up next and then the pitcher. Dodgers 3 runs, 5 hits. Mets 1 run, 3 hits, charged with 2 errors. So Darling is on borrowed time now, one way or the other. Outside. 3-2 to Howard Johnson. So it's a moment of truth for Bob Welch. Dave Magadan has come out on deck and loosening up. Remains to be seen whether he's on deck to hit for Santana or for the pitcher Darling. 3-2. Holding, and it's strike 3 called, and Johnson knew it.
He's had marvelous control of that curveball, and with the fastball that he has and the control that he's had today, he's just been, well, what the score indicates, 7 strikeouts. I mean, he drops a curveball in there now. When you think he's going to go fastball, be sure to stay away from the base on balls. And not only is he still for a strike, but in a great spot. It's out away, it's down, and all Johnson could do was just watch it float by.
So Magadan is coming out to bat for Santana. And all Howard Johnson can do is pause for refreshment. It's the big leagues. And that was a big league pitch. So with 2 down, Magadan coming up. The scheme of things, as Ron Peranowski goes out to talk to Bob Welch, Magadan will probably stay in the game and play third, and they'll move Howard Johnson to short. Darling due to follow Magadan.
There are many things that tell you it's the big leagues, but I remember listening to Drysdale say when he broke in, he said he's playing an exhibition game against the Yankees, had 3 balls and no strikes, and Whitey Ford threw him a curveball, and he got 3 balls and no strikes on Mantle, and Mantle bunted. So they can break you in a hurry.
Well, Howard Johnson has been broken in a long time ago. And with 2 down, here is Dave Magadan. Magadan is the cousin and godson of Yankee manager Lou Piniella. He had an arm infection and he was sidelined a great deal of spring training. He is a fellow who in 3 years in the minor leagues managed to hit 1 home run. Strike. Magadan has 2 home runs this year and 9 RBIs. Lee Mazzilli now comes out on deck. He would bat for Darling, of course. 0-1 to Magadan, who had a 7-game hitting streak snapped Monday night as a pinch hitter. So Darling figures to come out of the game. But of course, if Magadan makes the last out, you would expect Ron to go back out to the mound and pitch the 8th inning. The Dodgers in the 8th inning have Landro, Guerrero, and Socia, followed by Stubbs. So 3 of the 4 hitters in the 8th are left-handed. That might force Johnson's hand. We'll see. 2-1 the count. Davy Johnson. His club has won 3 straight and 4 out of 5. I remember a wise man telling me one time in baseball, the only 2 people who win or lose are managers and pitchers. Everybody else plays, but they're the only 2 who win or lose. In there on the corner at the knees. 2-2. 3-1 Dodgers, bottom of the 7th. The Mets have been getting a man in scoring position in the 3rd inning, in the 5th inning, and they've had a man on base in just about every inning but the 4th. And in the 4th inning, they hit 2 bullets, but at people. And that got him looking at the fastball. That's 8 strikeouts, and all Johnson can do is stand and chew his tobacco. And at the end of 7, Dodgers 3, Mets 1. Bob Wells will strike out his 8th batter, and 5 of them looking. He is driving not only the Mets hitters to distraction, but he's got Davy Johnson really ticked off. And Johnson directing his anger at the plate umpire, Dutch Rennett, and I guess, Joe, that's part of living on the outside part of the plate.
That's part of it, all right. And, you know, really, Dutch started out early. Backman had a strikeout in the 1st. There were 2 strikeouts in the 3rd. And by the 5th, with 2 more, he had a pretty good idea of how his strike zone was going to be. And I'll tell you, Welsh has been out there with the fastball and the curveball. And as you point out, 5 of the 8 strikeouts called 3rd strikes. That's just utter confusion.
The Mets make the anticipated change. Magadan, who batted for Santana, plays 3rd. Howard Johnson moves over to short. Darling stays in to pitch to Landro, Guerrero, and Socia. And this should be Darling's last inning. He's due to lead off, bottom of the 8th. Landro flied to center and then struck out twice. Hit foul down the left field line, out of play.
I tell you, that Darling could be in a 2-1 ball game is what he could be in. Ground ball, bad hop. Was 1st and 3rd.
Absolutely. Howard Johnson over at shortstop now, and he's doing a little house cleaning there as well. Scraping, trying to find loose pebbles and get them out of the way. He went 7 straight at short without an error, and then suddenly committed 4 errors in 3 games at shortstop. And it's not that we're trying to second guess the score, but it really looked like a bad hop that got away from Johnson in the 7th inning. But the world will little note nor long remember. 1 ball, 1 strike. Dodgers 3 runs, 5 hits. Mets 1 run, 3 hits, 2 errors. Foul back out of play. Remember, we told you that the White Sox were doing a number on Boston. But Floyd Bannister, a perfecto, through 5. 8-0 Chicago. 1-2 to Landro. A roller up along first base. Hernandez will put that away. 1 down. That will bring up Pedro Guerrero. Guerrero didn't have that good a swing at the pitch in the 1st inning. And yet that high fly ball just kept carrying and cleared the right field wall with sacks aboard. His 2nd home run to right field in 2 games against New York. Last time he walked, in between he grounded out, so he's 1 for 2.
He got him out with the curveball. The ball he hit over the fence was a fastball.
Well, let's see how he starts him now. Fastball just to show it to him. 1-0 the count. Darling's numbers: 2 earned runs. Outside, inside, 2 balls and no strikes to Guerrero. Ron a little bit on the wild side with the 4 walks, but he has more than balanced his books with the 5 strikeouts, and he made 2 super plays defensively. Two and 1. You like that pitch?
I love when a pitcher can throw something besides a fastball, 2 balls and no strikes or 3 and 1. He is pitching. He's not throwing. That was a great pitch.
Ooh. 2 and 2.
He challenged him right there, but the pitch before that set it up. I mean, he didn't fool Guerrero, nor did Guerrero, was he able to make contact. He challenged him, and Darling won that time.
He kept it down around the knees. If he gets the ball up a little more, then it would have been a bad risk. Perfect spot. 2 and 2. Yeah, that hurt Carter.
Well, he overthrew that one is what he did. He was going for the strikeout. He just overthrew it. That's the real fun of catching, is that cat and mouse game that you have with batters up there. And you remember what they did the other time. And of course, you got the other side of the coin when you get beat up like that.
When that pitch went in the dirt, you saw Carter kind of pinwheel his left arm. That's that left shoulder, which hurts when he extends that vertebrae, which he claims can be adjusted at least temporarily by the Mets trainer. It might have been an old football injury. 3 and 2. High drive into right center field and deep. Dykstra going back, way back, and he's hit another one out the other way. And this time he's taken plenty of time.
Oh, that's the new thing in baseball, is take your time when you hit that home run. That looked like it was up in his eyes, and Darling knew, you could see the way he took that ball, that it was a bad pitch, it was a mistake. And Guerrero took advantage of it. When he got that count to 3 and 2, momentum swung to Guerrero, and he really nailed it.
We mentioned the fact when he challenged him that he got the ball down. If he had gotten it up, it would have been a bad pitch. And that's what happened when you get it up. For Guerrero, 2 home runs today, 3 home runs in the 2 games. So he is blazing hot. He now has 13 home runs and 38 runs batted in. And for Darling, small consolation, a home run with the bases empty. And would you believe Socia bunting, but Darling gets him. Take another look at that swing by Guerrero.
More importantly, watch where the pitch is. It'll be above the belt. He just goes up and gets it.
See the full extension of the arms. That's what all the hitting coaches talk about. Don't let them extend. And boy, did he. And he's going to walk through the park.
Darling knew it was a bad pitch.
Oh, yeah.
He knew it. Yeah.
So Ron Darling has really been bitten by the home run ball. He has given up 11. 2 of them to Guerrero today. Strike to Franklin Stubbs.
Okay, whatever.
Sure,
Pete.
whatever,
Hey,
Pete.
all right.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate that.
0-2 to Stubbs. Struck out and walked twice. Franklin 0 for 1.
Why don't baseball players say we're #1 in high mom?
Yeah. No balls and 2 strikes to Stubbs. Well, it'll be a hitter for Darling, then Dykstra and Backman. You know the thing that is also haunting Davy Johnson? The cold numbers. The Mets are allowing more than 1 run per game this year than last year. That might just sound like a number, but more than 1 run a game is a killer. It's like the water torture, a drop at a time. Breaking ball missed. 2 and 2. That sums it up for you. Better than 1,000 words. 2 balls and 2 strikes to number 22, Franklin Stubbs. And that's one hit off the end of the bat. A lot of English on it. That's a tougher play than it looks. And Johnson throws him out. For the Pedro Guerrero Marching and Chowder Society, he will lead the parade at a very slow pace. He walks to his own drummer. It's Dodgers 4, Mets 1. Old Timers Day at Shea, and you can almost hear Barbara Streisand singing The Way We Were. Vintage 1969, Tommy Agee. Jerry Grody. You can't see his face too well there, but Tug McGraw. Felix Millan. Ed Kranepool, Cleon Jones. Ron Swoboda and Tug McGraw. The Way We Were. 1969 revisited. Why, they weren't even born then. But right now, they're concentrating on the Mets 1987. Let them do the dreaming. Lee Mazzilli will bat for Ron Darling. Then it'll be Len Dykstra and Wally Backman. And Mazzilli very hot. He's had 10 hits in his last 15 at-bats. And he's hitting almost 500 as a pinch hitter this year. Ball one.
That was his 112th pitch. He's had 64 strikes, 26 called strikes, and 48 balls.
So he hadn't worked too hard into the 8th inning. 1 ball, 1 strike. Mazzilli had an infield single last night that ignited a 2-run inning and broke a 4-4 tie. Lee, with 7 pinch hits, is tied for the lead in that difficult department with the Houston Astros' Terry Poole. He needs 3 hits for 1,000 in his career. Trying to bring that breaking ball with him to first base, and he left it in Socha's mitt. 1-2. Yeah, this is the inroads of time. My mother loved you. 1-2 to Saturday Night Fever. Foul back.
Well, there are a lot of things that tell you you're getting old in baseball without looking at a birth certificate. That's one way. And then you start to look like somebody's brother-in-law all the time.
The old story, you know when you really start to realize you're getting old? When the policemen look young.
And the pilots.
Well, with all of this, you know, Mazzilli's only 32.
Baby.
I got ties older than that, right? 4-1 Dodgers at bottom of the 8th inning.
You weren't.
That's an old joke.
Brum-bum.
Line drive down the right field line. Foul. So Mazzilli drilled it. Pulled it foul. He's quite an interesting study. Born here in New York. Went to high school at Lincoln High in Brooklyn. Thoroughly ambidextrous in amateur baseball, but ever since he turned professional, he throws only right-handed. Switch hitter, a top speed skater as a kid. He won 8 national speed skating championships. Lee Mazzilli. He first came up to the big leagues in 1976. He was on the All-Star team in the National League in '79 and traded in '82 for, among others, Ron Darling. Two and two. Welsh, as we said, has completed 2 out of 8. So they're backing him up again with Matt Young and Kenny Howell. 2 and 2. Fouled away. This telecast, presented by authority of Major League Baseball, may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. Along with Joe Garagiola, I'm Vin Scully. We're at Shea, and it's 4-1 Dodgers, 8th inning. Fastball fouled away. It is slowly getting to an area where the hitters get uncomfortable. A little bit of lattice work of shadows in front of home plate. The pitcher still in sunshine. Breaking ball, that's hit foul, so he's giving him the whole store, everything he's got. Don't forget the ladies on the LPGA Tour. They will follow us as soon as we're finished. Kings Island in Ohio. Dodgers scored 2 in the first. Lenny Dykstra got 1 back with a home run. The Dodgers added in the 7th. Guerrero hit his second home run of the game in the 8th. And it's still 2-2.
Changing speeds, he's throwing the fastballs. Mazzilli has seen the whole stories right, man.
Yep, everything on the shelf.
Yes, sir.
2 balls, 2 strikes to Lee. So Rich Gedman doubled to break up the perfect game and the possible no-hitter for Floyd Bannister, but the White Sox are still breezing 8-0 in this 6th inning. It was 2 out at the time. The game is now in the 7th, as you see. Light breeze rippling Old Glory in center field, blowing from right to left. Just missed inside. That's one of the few times today he has tried to punch a hitter out by working the inside corner. So he's gone all the way, and of course I would think at this stage of his game it is very important for Welch, leading by 3, to get the leadoff man. Fouled away.
Get the leadoff man and stay away from that base on balls. That's the thing. Got to make him hit their way on.
Welch has walked 4. Howell and Young throwing back of him. Welch has struck out 8, so he has more than balanced his books, and he's allowed just 3 hits and 1 run. Got him.
May have chased a bad ball.
Maybe it was borderline, shoulders maybe, and Mazzilli becomes the 9th strikeout victim for Bob Welch.
Take a good look at it, but of course he's battling all the way. 3-2 count. Might have been high, but that's the one that always looks so good to you.
So 9 strikeouts. Mazzilli goes back and sits down, and Len Dykstra, who homered on the first pitch of the game by Bob Welch, and that's the only noise made by the Mets. He has walked and struck out since, stole a base. Ball 1.
Boy, he checks that whole infield. He's got Woodson in tight. He's got Stubbs shortened up at first base because he's got to get on.
The Mets, having won 3 in a row and 4 out of 5, trying very hard to improve their record at home because they have so many road games in front of them, 19 out of the next 22, and they have not played well on the road at all. 4-9. Ball 2. The Dodgers hoping to get home and get well in a 9-game homestand against Montreal, Philadelphia, and the Mets. 2-1 to Len Dykstra. 1 out in the 8th. Dodgers 4, Mets 1. So after making so many pitches to Mazzilli, he's now 3-1, and Socia going out to give him a pep talk. Welch, and he'd be the first to admit it, he is a hyper type player. He talks to himself, mutters, groans, and every now and then Socia will go out and just try to quiet him down a little. An intense competitor. In there.
Dykstra really got into a crouch that time, trying to see if we can get a base on balls.
He'll make it as tough for you as he possibly can. And of course, Lenny is 5'10", but not by the time he gets finished shrinking that strike zone. Wally Backman is 5'9", similar type hitter. Take her down. High fly ball into right field. Landreau going back on the track at the wall. Gone. Lenny Dykstra hits his 6th home run of the year and his 2nd home run today. And it is now Dodgers 4, Mets 2. And you could tell on a 3-2 pitch as if Welch was saying, I'm not going to walk you, give it your best shot. And Dykstra gave it his best shot.
It was a 3-2 fastball, and he wanted to stay away from the base on balls and laid it in there, and Dykstra jumped all over it.
So the crowd of over 39,000 seeing a light of hope now, and the first time in his career in the major leagues that Len Dykstra has had a 2-home run game. Now the batter is Wally with Backman the hitter, you have Hernandez on deck representing the tying run. Strike.
And you saw Socia warning his infield again, watch the bunt, because he's got to get on and get the gunners up there. Hernandez and McReynolds and Strawberry.
0-1 to count to Wally Backman. Dropped another one in there. Strike 2. 0-2. So after laboring so hard with Mazzilli, then laboring with Dykstra, he comes right out and jumps ahead of Backman. 0-2.
With 2 curveballs,
Yep.
yeah.
Show him the fastball. 1-2. 4 runs, 6 hits, no errors for the Dodgers. 2 runs, 4 hits, 2 errors for the Mets. In a somewhat low-scoring ball game, we've had 4 home runs, 2 by Guerrero and 2 by Len Dykstra. Two and 2. He's making a lot of pitches in this inning.
Yes, he is.
What did you say? 112 going into the inning, something like that.
112.
Yeah. He must have made 10 to Mazzilli and 6 to Dykstra, so he made 15 pitches to Mazzilli alone in this inning. And there's a base hit, so Hernandez will be the tying run. So Welsh has just about gone over the 130 mark. Bill Russell, Ron Pernoski, and Tommy Lasorda are looking not only at what they have, but what Davy Johnson has in the dugout, and what kind of a maneuver to look ahead. They know full well that Welsh has made 136 pitches, and he is now getting into the time where he's coming out.
And once again, Dykstra and Backman are the guys who get the job done. Dykstra gives you a bonus with the home run, but he gets on base, doesn't make the out. Backman keeps it alive to get the big hitters up there. But if it is possible, Vin, Mazzilli striking out helped the cause to the extent of making him make a lot of pitches.
Lasorda, I heard him use the word bring, or at least I saw him use it, and I know what he means. They're going to make a 2-for-1 switch. So Reggie Williams will go into right field. So what he was saying to Pernoski was bring Landreau back with you. So Welch is coming out. And they're going to Matt Young because you have the left-hand hitting Keith Hernandez coming out. And Bob Welch, with his needle on empty, walks out in the 8th inning, leading 4-2. And we'll be back as Matt Young chugs into the mound. But first, this message. Matt Young, who came to the Dodgers from Seattle with a record of 1-5, a very high earned run average, over 8. He does have 2 saves. His 5th defeat occurred last night and was set up basically on his own throwing error. And Reggie Williams will be in right field. Young will bat in Landreau's spot, and Williams will bat 9th, which means Reggie Williams would hit 3rd when the Dodgers bat in the top of the 9th inning. Terry Leach and Jeff Innes are in the Mets pen. Brad Havens, a left-hander, is in the Dodger pen. Kenny Howell is down there ready if they need him. And Matt Young will be pitching to Keith Hernandez. It's been a story of home runs. Guerrero, a 2-run home run in the 1st inning. Dykstra, a home run with the bases empty. The Dodgers got 1 run on a bad hop in the 7th inning and added another on Guerrero's 2nd home run. The Mets' 2nd run, the 2nd home run by Lenny Dykstra. And when Backman singled in the 8th inning, a bone-weary Welsh came out, and Matt Young is brought in to get Hernandez. 1 out, 8th inning, 4-2 Dodgers. Hernandez representing the tying run. Ball 1. The captain of the New York Mets grounded out twice, single to left. 39,000 coming alive here at Shea in the bottom of the 8th. 1 ball, no strikes. Now back 1-1. Young has a very good arm. A live fastball, he'll get up into the 90s. He has a hard curveball. He has a tendency to throw it in the dirt, which is very dangerous with runners in scoring position. But as you saw, his numbers, 1 win, 5 losses, an ERA at over 8. So he's been hurting. Ground ball into right field, base hit. Backman will stop at second. And now here comes Kevin McReynolds with the tying runs aboard and 1 out, and they are alive and well at Shea.
Sochi's just making sure that Matt Young knows who's covering in case the ball's hit back to him. It's a bit unusual to see Hernandez pull that ball against the left hand. It usually goes the other way, but with the big gap between first and second, he pulled it right through the hole.
It shows you the importance of Darryl Strawberry hitting behind McReynolds. It allows McReynolds a chance for an at-bat against a left-hander. And he's hitting .340 against left-handers this year. Fouled away. But boy, it's great to hit behind a good hitter, and it's also great to hit in front of a hitter like Strawberry, because it gives an extra hack for Kevin McReynolds. 2 on, 1 out in the 8th. Dodgers 4, Mets 2. Now in the Mets bullpen, Roger McDowell gets up. He's joined Terry Leach, so you have 2 sinker ballers down in the Mets pen. 1-1 to McReynolds. He is 0 for 3, but he hit 2 balls right on the button. Ball 2. McReynolds went deep to Shelby in left center, lined out to Woodson at third, and then hit a fly ball in the 6th inning. So Lasorda sweating it out with Perinoski in the Dodger pen. And McReynolds waiting. Fastball and a high fly ball to left center. Shelby and Guerrero at the wall. Leaping catch by Shelby. And the runners have to get back. John Shelby takes an extra base hit away. We'll look at it again to see whether it had a chance to go over the wall. I doubt it. But T-Bone was filet mignon on that play. That might have gone over.
I don't know, but I'll tell you, awful close. This will tell you whether it would have gone over. Guerrero says you got it. It would have been close.
Yeah, and how? So a big play by John Shelby, who just arrived here yesterday from Baltimore. Whether it is a game-saving catch remains to be seen, but it was a beauty. And now here is Darryl Strawberry. Walk, lined out to right, and fouled out. Right. Strawberry hitting a good 40 points less against left-hand pitching. But he does have 4 home runs against left-handers, including 1 last night against Fernando Valenzuela. 4-2 Dodgers, but the Mets, with a run in the 8th on the home run by Dykstra, have the tying runs aboard here with 2 out. Breaking ball, missing with it. 1 ball, 1 strike. On deck, Gary Carter. Second, Hernandez at first. Ball 2. We've had a couple of great defensive plays. One by Ron Darling on the squeeze play. Another by Hernandez and Darling on a play at first. And now this leaping catch as John Shelby went up the ladder to possibly take a game-winning home run away from Kevin McReynolds. 2-1. Breaking ball on the inside corner, and Strawberry can't believe it. He's going to take a walk.
Oh, he's got to regroup after that one. He was sure that was the ball, which of course would make it 3-1. Here it is. You be the umpire.
2 balls and 2 strikes to Darryl Strawberry. Fastball lifted to left, but he was late on it. Guerrero coming over and makes the catch. 1 run, 3 hits for the Mets, and they lead the tying runs aboard. And at the end of 8, the Dodgers 4, the Mets 2, and the big play by John T-Bone Shelby. Under the heading of how to make friends and influence people, particularly teammates on a new ball club, John Shelby is officially welcomed to the club. And if you wonder why, as Matt Young is over there, that fence is 8 feet high, and John had to go that high and maybe a few inches higher to take what could have been, I believe, a game-winning home run away from Kevin McReynolds. The Mets make 2 changes. Lee Mazzilli, who batted for Ron Darling, stays in the game in right field and bats 9th. And Terry Leach, a sinker ball pitcher, will go in Darryl Strawberry's spot since Darryl made the last out. Tracy Woodson, Mariano Duncan, and Reggie Williams against Terry Leach. Leach is kind of a pup out of McDowell, but Woodson hit that sinker pretty far, and Dykstra catches it on a warning track. So he doesn't quite have the same sinker. And Lenny Dykstra, a fine play to go back and get it. He's had a big day. 2 home runs and a walk from Dykstra, who's been all over the lot in center field. A reminder, the $350,000 Mazda LPGA Championship from Kings Island, Ohio. We will get to it if time permits. We're 4-2 Dodgers, 1 out, top of the 9th inning. Sinker hit just fair inside first and down the line. Chasing it is Mazzilli, and Duncan, who was 1 for 30, is beside himself with joy as he doubles to right. Boy, that was a long time coming. 1 for 30. What was the longest slump you were in? Seriously, do you remember anything like that? I mean, you got to just have tough nights sleeping, tough.
Oh, I had a lot of those, but I don't think I really remember. I really don't.
You don't remember the one?
No, I remember the one. You don't think about those things.
Try not to, I guess.
It's like your playing weight. How do you know what your playing weight is if they never play you?
Ralph Bryant, who last night pinch hit for Valenzuela and tripled off the top of the center field fence, will now come up and bat for Reggie Williams. Ralph Bryant. Bryant was called up while hitting only .202. It shows you the shortage of big league outfielders when Mike Marshall went to the pits for repair. But Bryant had 5 home runs and 14 RBIs. He has an extremely quick bat. It is eye-catching as far as how hard he swings it. Bryant is 3 for 9, so that boils down to 333. And he hits it foul down the line, out of play. Leach has given up a 400-foot fly ball to Dykstra and a line drive double to right. Matt Young came in, gave up a single to Hernandez, and then that jolt to McReynolds. Depends on how you spell relief. 0-1. Matt Young waiting for his duel with the Mets in the bottom of the ninth, sitting alongside Socia. Carter, Howard Johnson, Magadan due up in the ninth inning. One ball, one strike. Ralph Bryant. He's been in the Dodger organization for a while. They've been waiting for him to mature and arrive, and as usual for so many, it's a struggle. Check swing foul, 1-2. The other game, Andre Dawson has figured prominently with a 2-run home run in the ninth inning, and Atlanta and the Cubs tied up 6-6. Atlanta led at one time 4-0 in that game.
Has that Dawson ever made a difference?
Oh boy.
Has one man been able to lead him?
They now have more speed in Chicago, and it shows up dramatically in their success on AstroTurf. They have done a complete about-face on the rug at the Cubs. 2-2 to Bryant. A couple of other reports for you in other games that were played today. The Red Sox might have gone to the beach. 9-0 Chicago in the seventh. Bannister pitched a perfect game with 2 out into the sixth before Gedman doubled. Oakland leading Baltimore 2-1 in the sixth. Mark McGwire got them started in the first inning with a home run, his 15th. Fouled away, and the backlash of the swing knocked it all the way over to the ball boy. Bryant, a Georgia boy. He hit his first major league home run last year against Jeff Reardon of Montreal. He was drafted by the Dodgers in '80, Minnesota in '81. Didn't sign, and eventually came into the Dodger organization in '81. 2-2 to Ralph. High slicing foul down the left field line. Will drop untouched. Magadan, Johnson, McReynolds, no chance. So Magadan, who will be the third man up when the Mets bat in the ninth, goes back to third base. 4 runs, 7 hits for the Dodgers, 2 runs, 6 hits for the Mets, 4 home runs, 2 by Guerrero, 1 with a man aboard, 2 by Dykstra, each with the bases empty. And the great leaping catch by John Shelby to deprive McReynolds of a possible game-winning home run. Hit foul off the tarp roller and down the line.
Hey, he's a cut and slasher up there. He's not about to take any pitches. He's had his whacks.
He hit as many as 31 home runs in the minor leagues, so he does have power.
I think that's one of the big changes that's happened in baseball. They deal on potential now. I mean, 202 used to get you released, and now they say, well, he had a couple good swings last week. A pitcher is 2-9. They say, yeah, but his last outing he had 3 good innings.
Guerrero, the one-man gang so far for the Dodgers offensively, with 3 home runs in the series. 2-2 to Ralph Bryant. And Duncan to third. Off-speed pitch, and Magadan wasn't near the bag, and Carter knew if he threw to the third baseman who'd be on the run, he might risk throwing it away.
I think Duncan asked a couple times of the third base coach, can I come over? Because he was really itching to come over there. Leach would look at him, but nobody was jockeying back. It's a big base to steal, obviously, because now the infield's got to come in, and the fly ball picks up another run, and now they're going to put him on, and here we go.
Though Duncan is 7 out of 8, Bryant gets what is now termed an intentional walk, and Steve Sachs coming up. Now, in this combination with Duncan in third and Sachs at first and a sinker ball pitcher with 1 out, the first thought you have is squeeze. Last night, Lasorda tried to put the squeeze on with Sachs in the 7th inning. And Sachs was looking for a pitch inside. He had his hips in the Dodger dugout and fouled the squeeze bunt off, so they took it off. Whether Lasorda was discouraged over the busted squeeze play last night, every offensive play that Lasorda has put on today has backfired until Duncan steals third. He's played run and hit several times. He's had man picks off while trying to set up a hit and run. Strike.
And I'm not so sure, Ben, we'll never know until we ask Lasorda. Duncan didn't do that on his own because he really was itching to go.
Well, with Bryant definitely a pull hitter, Magadan was so far away from third base. He was way over in the hole. There really wasn't a third baseman when Duncan took off. We'll watch Duncan. He'll tell us if it's a squeeze or no. He's not coming. Fouled away, and of course no squeeze now. 0-2. Dodgers had a squeeze go down the drain in the 7th inning on that magnificent play by Ron Darling on a good bunt by Bob Welsh, erasing Franklin Stubbs at the plate. Bryant at first, Duncan at third, 1 out in the 8th, 4-2 Dodgers. 2 streaks on the line today, a 7-game losing streak and a 3-game winning streak for the Mets. On the corner, and now it's a Dodger angry about the outside corner. Uh-oh, that's going to cost him. Dutch Rennett is now gesturing to Steve Sachs $100. When he holds up that one finger, $100 for tossing equipment. In the old days, you might have been ejected for throwing equipment, but they've decided, no, we'll keep you in play. We'll let you blow off some steam, but it's going to cost you. Here's the pitch.
He said it was a foot outside. You could almost read his lips when he was saying that, but Dutch had no doubt about it, called it a strike and bouncing that helmet. $100.
So with 2 out, here is John Shelby on the corner. 0-1.
I wish that the leagues would take that $100 and give it to the bat so we could take care of the older ball players. And then everybody would benefit.
All right.
Can I make that suggestion?
Sure. 0-1. Sinker missed. 1 ball, 1 strike. Shelby is 1 for 4. He lost a second hit on that dazzling play involving Keith Hernandez and Ron Darling. But then he made the play of the day on McReynolds with 2 on and 1 out, appearing to get his glove above the 8-foot wall and take the home run away. Ball 2. Now 2-1, 2 out. Shelby backs out to look to see if there might be some kind of a play. With 2 out, of course, you're watching Bryant at first. Sinker is hit foul. 2-2. You know, it must be something, and you've had the experience of coming to a new club and having to play when you don't know anybody. I mean, it is tough, isn't it?
Well, sure it is. You learn the signs, you learn the guys. Depending on your position, you have to learn the guy that's playing closest to you. You have to try to think along with maybe how the manager tries to play. It is an adjustment, and a big one.
I used to think it was tough growing up in New York when we moved to a new neighborhood. I can well. To the bottom of the 9th. Bottom of the 9th inning, Dodgers 4, Mets 2. Gary Carter, Howard Johnson, and Dave Magadan in that order. Ralph Bryant, who batted for Reggie Williams, is in right field. And Matt Young ready to try and avoid a high wire act in the bottom of the 9th. On the corner for a strike. Carter saying no, no. Just shaking his head.
I'll say one thing. They're all complaining, but he's done it to both sides. So his strike zone has been consistent.
0-1 to Gary. 1 ball, 1 strike. Carter hit into a double play, grounded to short, and singled last time up, so he's 1 for 3. Matt Young trying to save this one for Bob Welch. You know, for Matt Young, who among other things with that ERA of 8, a 1-5 record, he has also been unlucky. There have been some strange things happen back of him. For the first time this year, you can say he was lucky when Shelby made that leaping catch. What is it the baseball player says in order to keep his sanity? Over the year, it all evens up.
You know, I often wonder when they go into a stretch with nobody on, who do pitchers watch?
He's trying to watch the strike zone. And Carter chasing a bad ball. And Gary will probably say that's what happened when they call that first pitch a strike. Now I'm going after the outside ball. 1 down.
I tell you, in the old days, you'd have umpires when you were walking away say, "You're getting on me, and you swinging a pitch like that."
Here's Howard Johnson, flied to center, walked and stole a base, and struck out. Bob Welch struck out 9 in 7 1/3 innings. On deck, Dave Magadan, and then Lee Mazzilli, due to bat 4th in the inning. Breaking ball, strike. 0-1. Johnson started at third, finished up at short. As a switch hitter, Johnson hitting close to 30 points higher from this side of the plate, hitting about 270 from this side. 1-1. Johnson's power is from this side of the plate. 5 of his 8 home runs as a right-handed batter. Of course, for the Mets, they are haunted again by the bugaboo. They have not won a game on Saturday this year. Ball 2. In fact, they've been shut out on the game of the week. They're 0-3 on the game of the week. And of course, they're down by 2 today. Davies' record on a Saturday, Sunday, a total of 1-11. The win against the Giants on a Sunday. In fact, there was a pretty good line about the fact that the Mets have been unable to win on Saturday and Sunday. Strike 2. Someone said, well, since they became champions last year, they just have a 5-day work week. They haven't taken the weekend off. They've just had off weekends. 1 out, 9th inning. Dodgers 4, Mets 2. On the corner. How'd you like to have a nickel for every time Davy John has heard that? On the corner. That's the 2nd strikeout for Matt Young, the 11th New York Mets hitter, and it's head shaking time now for Davy in the Mets dugout. Take a look.
Dodger pitchers Welsh and now Matt Young. Outside corner, says Dutch Rennert.
Bud Harrelson standing alongside his manager. And with 2 out in the 9th inning, 4-2 Dodgers. Dave Magadan, the batter, with Lee Mazzilli on deck. Magadan appeared as a hitter for Santana and struck out. In the 7th, a strike. When you see a lot of Mets striking out, you can understand Davy Johnson shaking his head, because the Mets came into this game with an overall batting average that put them 3rd in the National League. Half swing, strike 2.
And today it's been a lot of called 3rd strikes, man.
And half swings. 2 big swings by Lenny Dykstra, and of course the big swing by Kevin McReynolds, and the even bigger catch by Shelby. And the Dodgers are hoping the worst is over. They're trying to snap that 7-game losing streak. 1-2. You think Young tried to get a little extra on that?
I would think that he kind of aired it out, as they say.
Wow. 1-2. Magadan with a .346 average. He hasn't played too much, but he has 2 home runs, 9 RBIs. And down he goes on a breaking ball in the dirt. Young strikes out the side after getting the 11th hour reprieve, and thanks to the catch by John Shelby, the Dodgers beat the Mets 4-2. 4 runs, 7 hits, no errors, 2 runs, 6 hits, 2 errors for the Mets. And for the Dodgers, Welsh the winner, Darling the loser. The Mets' 3-game winning streak is over, the 7-game losing streak is over, and we'll be right back.
Mobil 1 synthetic motor oil. No matter what you drive, or how you drive, or where you drive, or what conditions you drive under. With Mobil synthetic oil technology, there's no finer engine protection anywhere. Save up to $3 on Mobil oils and up to $19 on all these products at participating Mobil stations and leading retailers. Once you look through a Minolta Maxim, you'll never see life the same way again. Maxim, the world's first SLR with built-in autofocus. 26 autofocus lenses capture the action as only you see it. Minolta Maxim. Let your creativity come to life. The Maxim system. All the things you'll do.
Only you and the mind of Minolta.
Fancy perfumey aftershave. Gotta be a quarterback's locker.
Real guys who aren't afraid to get mud on their uniforms use rugged, honest stuff. Ice Blue Aqua Velva. Its icy blue formula makes your face feel great after shaving, and Aqua Velva's got a scent
that a lot of fans find attractive.
Very attractive. There's something about today's Aqua Velva man.
So you still think linemen are dumb?
The new Mitsubishi Mighty Max, patiently crafted to be serious fun for the money. Only $64.99. Mighty Max gives you more standard features than Toyota, Nissan, or Mazda. And it's still priced lower than all 3. And right now, special factory incentives could save you hundreds. The Mitsubishi Mighty Max. When you're ready for some serious fun for the money, it's ready to kick up a little dust. Mitsubishi.
The Major League Baseball game of the week has been brought to you by Miller High Life. Miller made the American way since 1855. By Mitsubishi Motors. Experience the sensation of the full line of new cars and trucks from Mitsubishi. By Wendy's, home of hot and juicy hamburgers. And by Mobil 1 synthetic motor oil. Mobil 1 protects your engine better than any conventional motor oil. This week's NBC Miller Lite player of the game is Pedro Guerrero. Miller Lite happy to present a check for $1,000 in the name of Pedro Guerrero to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. We're going to check in with golf in Ohio after these words from your local station.